Emirates and Canada. The Commission will extend registration in Canada and UAE by the number of days lost to ensure Kenyans residing in the two countries are recorded 15 days to register as voters. This as ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi has now warned the IEBC against being used to champion certain individuals' wishes in the August 9th general election. Mudavadi says the IEBC is mandated by law to ensure that the elections are free and fair. Mudavadi said the Kenya Kwanza Alliance will emerge victorious in the election.
Darubini kwa IEBC. We want to make it very clear. Tafadhali IEBC, musitumiwe kamwe ama mtu asidhubutu kumutumia so that you can be used to legitimize an illegitimate project. Hatutaki. We don't want IEBC to be used to legitimize an illegitimate project. Sisi tunataka Wakenya wachague kiongozi yule ambaye wanapenda.
Now, the Orange Democratic Movement has dismissed a statement issued by former Kakamega Senator Boni Khalwale, claiming that he had been endorsed by a section of its grassroots leaders from Ikolomani. Khalwale took to social media to announce that he had had a breakfast meeting with ODM leaders from Ikolomani, who he claimed had endorsed his bid for Kakamega governorship. According to ODM party, however, the persons Khalwale met were imposters purporting to be ODM members. Khalwale is allied to Deputy President William Ruto's political camp and is hoping to succeed Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, who is serving his second and final term. Now, Speaker of the National Assembly, Justin Muthui, has clarified that political parties have until the end of March to submit their membership list to the Registrar of Political Parties. Contrary to a Gazette notice issued by the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission giving April 9th as the deadline, Muthui explained that the newly enacted political parties law allows political parties to file their membership list by the end of March. Muthui cautioned aspirants of various political seats to be extra careful with the dates or risk being locked out of the poll. He made the remarks as political parties across the country continue to race against time to put their houses in order ahead of the August 9th national elections. Former National Security Funds Investments Manager Francis Zuriel Muthui has been fined 2.4 billion shillings or served 12 years in prison for defrauding the pension fund. 3 other former employees of NSSF, David Murungu Githaiga, Isaac Nyakundi Nyamongo and Wilfred Weru, have also been fined 803 million shillings each or 12 years in prison. The Discount Securities Limited will pay a fine of 4 billion shillings. The 4 NSSF officers who had been convicted on different counts have been found culpable of the loss of pensioners' fund amounting to 1.2 billion shillings have been sentenced by Chief Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi. And the Ministry of Health has inked a deal with private hospitals that would see the stalemate between them and the National Health Insurance Fund temporarily resolved. According to a statement by NHIF, the Health Cabinet Secretary Muthui Kagwe, NHIF Chief Executive Officer CEO Peter Kamunyo, and various private hospitals held a consultative meeting to deliberate on a directive issued last week. In the deal, private hospitals resolved to continue allowing NHIF card holders to access medical services in their facilities until June 30th. And 2 fugitives were hanged.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, say, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has you ever that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. SpiceFM, Nyeri.
Okay, so it's Tuesday morning, is it? It is. The 1st of February, and what does it look like on Nairobi streets? Not too much in terms of traffic. It seems like on the 1st of February, most folks have not gotten up, at least not just yet, or those who've left have already left. Uhuru Highway is clear and free, as is Ngong Road. Coming out of Westlands doesn't look too bad this morning at all. On the Thika Superhighway, just a little bit of traffic past Pangani, and apart from that, there's really nothing happening. There's a little bit of action on Juja Road as you're trying to get into the city, and on Jogo Road as well. Haile Selassie Avenue is taking some action this morning. But apart from that, it looks pretty good. The southern bypass looking great. The eastern bypass is an absolute dream. The Red Hill Link Road can get you out of Westlands, but Westlands is not thumping this morning. So not too much of an issue, at least not for now. What are we going to do? We're going to wait and see. Let us know if you get stuck anywhere or if you find a good route to use this morning. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Are you ready? Okay. Spice FM. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down.
My friend, January.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to...
We're in February. And this is how the year ends.
You know, tomorrow is 28th.
By the way, you've taken those words out of my mouth. Because as you said it, I had this moment when I remembered last year, when we talked about February.
Yeah.
And you said the same thing. You said, you know this one? And we're in February. This year has already ended.
It's gone. It's gone. Welcome to February, everybody. It's 9 minutes after 6 on the first day of the month. Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. CT, how are you today?
Today?
It rained yesterday.
Where?
In some parts of Nairobi.
The part I live in, it didn't rain.
Ah.
No, it didn't. It was just cold, but it didn't rain.
Say where you went.
I was seeing it on TV.
Okay.
Areas of Kibra, Langata, it rained at about 7 p.m.
Okay.
6:30 p.m. actually. It was raining. Then it was that rain smell.
Nice.
Yeah, at Standard Group at about 7-8 p.m. How are you?
Me?
Yes.
Fine, thank you.
Hata mimi niko sawa.
Hata wewe uko fine, thank you.
Yes.
Yani sawa kabisa.
Yes. Tunashukuru Mungu.
Kweli kweli.
Yes. Welcome to the conversation. We'll have several conversations this morning. We will have guests who will be talking to us about the state of food security in the country after launching a report on the Food Security Index in Kenya, the Global Hunger Index, and the Kenyan situation in particular. We'll have a conversation about that at 8 o'clock. Are we food secure? Are we anywhere close to food security? And what do we need to do? And what gains are we making? What losses are we experiencing? Then at 7, we'll have a conversation about the various treaties that the government signs with other governments on behalf of Kenyans. We've talked about several. So there is the Kenya-UK treaty that was signed. There have been the negotiations that stalled, or the Kenya-US trade pact. There have been other pacts that have been signed, which also talk about tax and tax regimes and how they apply, and all these things. Now, it turns out that members of parliament, yes, they are given access to debate and then domesticate these parts. But for some, you cannot even change a letter. Remember there was a case with the Kenya UK?
Yeah.
It's been decided, it's been agreed. The people's representatives just look at it, FYI. So we'll have the MP for Kiambu constituency, Jude Njom-Watsavan, to discuss this and others. Let's look at COVID numbers.
All right, let's look at what's going on in Kenya. 46 new cases, and that was in the last 24 hours, from a sample size of 2,324. That gives Kenya a positivity rate of 2%. 108 recoveries and unfortunately 3 recorded deaths. Looking good in terms of a positivity rate and getting those numbers down. So what was looked at as a mini wave in the last 3 weeks or so, that seems to have, reached, it's come down and it's not much of an issue anymore in terms of added numbers. We didn't see hospitals, medical facilities bursting at the seams with this most recent wave. Nairobi with the highest number of cases, and we have other counties: Nyeri 3, Siaya 2, Nyandara, 1 in Uasin Gishu, 1 in Bomet, 1 in Kajiado, and the list goes on. Just like that. Let's look at vaccinations in the country. 24,639,820 available. We're looking at 20.3% proportion of adults fully vaccinated in the country. 51,000 now. That's about 7,000 more from Friday. Of 15 to 18-year-olds who have been vaccinated with the Pfizer vaccine. And almost 150,000 booster doses have been administered in the country. So, still available for vaccination. So the clarion call remains, come out and get vaccinated. Let's look at the world now. We are looking specifically at the United States, very close to 1 million deaths from COVID-19. 910,104 deaths have occurred in the U.S. and they're at 76,222,215 and still recording high numbers. The numbers that we were looking at yesterday were 242,000 COVID-19 cases. Shall we look really quickly at what's happening in Northern America, up in Canada? Freedom Convoy is what it was called. Justin Trudeau has slammed protests in the capital, Ottawa, against COVID-19 vaccine mandates as an insult to memory and truth. Protesters are demonstrating for a third consecutive day over a cross-border vaccine mandate for truckers imposed by the Liberal government. It's interesting how that story has been worded. The Liberal government previously were, everything kind of, we're not going to trample on your civil liberties and things like this. And then suddenly you tell us, boom, if you're going to cross the border, we're insisting that you be vaccinated. Huh? What do you mean? The police asked the public to avoid downtown area Monday, citing traffic noise and safety issues. Some downtown stores, including a shopping mall, were also closed. Demonstrators at the so-called Freedom Convoy had been mostly peaceful, but the behavior of some members of the crowd has been strongly criticized. You saw all sorts of things, Nazi symbolism, some likening COVID-19 health measures to Jews under Nazi prosecution. Friends of Simon Wiesenthal's Center of Holocaust Studies criticized the use of these symbols as a heinous form of Holocaust distortion. Trudeau said that, freedom of expression, assembly and association are cornerstones of democracy. But Nazi symbolism, racist imagery, and desecration of war memorials are not. So he was saying, come on, folks, you're going a little bit too far with this. You can't say that because we're asking you to get vaccinated in order to cross province borders, that you can liken that to the prosecution of the Jews under the Holocaust. So he's saying this is a bit extreme, folks. Let's, dull it down a bit.
Isn't it interesting? On the one hand, there are those who will argue that their rights are being
trampled on,
infringed upon. The others would argue when you're using your rights to infringe on the rights of other people, you bring a whole city to a halt. Then you are now infringing on
So
the
who's
rights.
breaking whose?
Yes.
But they have been largely peaceful.
Until a few members yesterday.
Yeah, it's just a small number of people. They are largely peaceful. They have announced their routes. They have said where they're going next as they came all the way to Ottawa. So really, they haven't been disruptive.
They haven't.
I think the government ought... Okay, so Trudeau says he's not going to meet them. How does that help?
No, it doesn't. I think he came from the point of a bit of irritation where he said that this was taken out of hand and that they could have had a conversation previously. But then where it got to yesterday with a lot of the symbolisms that he saw, he said, you know what? Sorry. It remains in place, at least for now. Candice Bergen, actually, deputy leader of the Conservative Party, said that protesters represented millions who have had enough of lockdowns and broken promises. She says that they deserve to be heard and they deserve respect. Trudeau also announced that he has tested positive for COVID-19, but is feeling fine, interestingly enough. He said he would continue to work remotely this week while following public health guidelines.
You know, my point was this. There are consequences that you may not have purposed or even foreseen.
Yeah.
And they may help mar what was perhaps a wonderful cause. You determined and said, this is what we would like. You see, I am thinking of similar protests in the US, but mostly as a result of a black person being harmed or killed by police. Now, people begin with protesting, and then what follows is looting and burning of things.
Sure.
And as Eric correctly puts it, it's a few people who do this.
Yeah.
But usually, the focus now will be on those consequences.
Yeah.
To the point where if you aren't careful, why the whole protest began will get lost. Because the mayhem that actually followed and the manner in which the police responded to it, because it starts and then there's the response. But look at the day and night scenario. Denmark, who also have COVID numbers on the rise, they've opened up everything. Literally. It is life as usual. And
the UK is on the rise, it's on the route to that.
Yes, they are.
You see, it will not be amplified because the Prime Minister is facing all the heat in Parliament, so he's trying to deflect it by saying, you know what, let's remove the mask mandate in public places. Now you don't have to if you're going out in public, and eventually we will reduce even the other mandates in place. But that's the UK basically is also moving in that direction.
They got there before Denmark even. They opened their country up and then had to shut it down again when the numbers kept rising. So it's how you want to handle this situation.
Indeed.
Because numbers may be rising. Denmark says the numbers are rising, but the number of cases that requires hospitalization or what you may call serious cases are not alarming. So, which way forward?
Yeah. We are live streaming the show on SpiceFM KE, Facebook and YouTube. Are you online? Say hello to us, either on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Instagram. We'll be saying hello to you shortly after we take a look at the weather forecast for today. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
What does the 14th of February mean to you? Is it Valentine's Day, Singles Awareness Day, or just another day on the calendar?
I don't need the 14th.
Either way, we're celebrating love in all its variants. This February, if you're here for love or just laughs, you're welcome to join us at the Tamarind Tree Hotel, Nairobi on the 12th of February for a good time and zero pressure to be anything but yourself. Book a room with your squad, your partner, or by yourself and enjoy dinner and a fun night with performances from Atemi, MC Jesse, and more. Hosted by Spice FM's Barbara Mbaka. If you're like us, you'll take it to the next level and take advantage of the late checkout and breakfast the next day. Join us at Love and Laughter by reserving your spot now for 16,500 shillings for a single and 20,000 shillings for two payable to pay bill number.
It's mostly cloudy in Nairobi. We'll see highs of 25 and lows of 15 today. Partly cloudy conditions at 15 in Nakuru, highs of 26. 25 will be the high in Nyeri, where it's partly cloudy at 13. And we're looking at clear conditions in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 13. Clear in Mombasa at 25, highs of 32. Malindi is clear at 26. It'll go to highs of 31. It's raining in Kisumu at 19, highs of 28 and lows of 19, while in Kakamega it's partly cloudy at 16. We'll see highs of 28 and lows of 16. All right, in Kampala, Clear conditions at 20, highs of 27. It's sunny already in Dar es Salaam. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 25. Johannesburg is mostly cloudy at 14, highs of 25 today. Still a foggy morning in Lagos at 23, highs of 33 and lows of 22. It's clear in Kinshasa at 24, highs of 33 today. Out in Beijing, early Tuesday afternoon, it's -1 and sunny, highs of 2 and lows of -8. Paris is cloudy at 2. We'll see highs of 10 and lows of 1. 7 degrees and cloudy in London, highs of 13 and lows of 7. -2 in New York. It's clear. We'll see highs of -1 and lows of -7.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Barasa Simiu is tuning from Hargeisa and says he feels he's home. Oh, locked in, absolutely. Great to have you in. Good morning, Situation Room, my good people. Ndu, Eric, and Dr. Muga. Tuning from Kisumu, Migosi. Yes, indeed. Tuning from Bungoma. That's where Demikan is. Wajohi Kimanga. Sendug is tuning from Kilimani. And Titus is in Kimilili. Robert Bogo, happy February to you too, my man. Margaret Chinula is tuned in from Lusaka. Kaka Frank, good morning. Mimo Michelle and Zell tuned in from Namibia this morning. Good to have you on the show. Mombasa Road, Victor, we see you. Karim Jonathan also tuned in. Stanley Ngashe Stan. These IED attacks were not the signs of French warnings, are they? Well, something to be discussed. Avior Samuel tuned in from Ghana this morning. Johnston tuned in from Kericho. Mbungu Jr. tuned in this morning from Kwale County in Kinango. MCR, we see you. John Tocho tuned in from Nairobi. And Jose J is tuned in. John Ovie is tuned in from Lagos. And another one from Zambia, Samantha Chifwembwe. Good morning to you. Isaiah Omboro, we see you. Leon Giri, good morning. Chris Amolo, good morning to you. Tuned in this morning. Everybody bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. We see you all. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Karibuni, City. Is the proverb.
Yes. Kupotea njia ndio kujua njia.
Ndio.
Makubaliana na hayo
kabisa.
Kupotea njia
ni kupata njia,
ndio kujua njia. Haya, translate it for our friend who's in Hargeisa.
Losing your way is finding your way.
Feels like it should come with a soundtrack, CT. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Bum, bum. Dun, 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 dun.
Losing your way
bum, 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 bum.
is
finding,
bum, 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 bum,
finding your way.
Yes.
Play the Chariots of Fire.
Yes. Or losing your way is getting to know your way.
Indeed.
Yes.
Or losing one way is finding another.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Right.
So it's okay to get lost.
Actually, it is.
Get lost.
But just ask for directions. Gosh darn it.
Eric, when you come from a small town like I did when I was going to secondary school, and you end up in the city of Nairobi, you really do not know which. If someone asks you where this place is, you have no clue.
You have no idea.
So I realized that. So what I used to do, Sundays we'd be given time to leave the school, to go out. I actually used to sign out and just walk around, because I knew I had time.
Yeah.
Walk around town just to see the town.
Did you find your
KCC
way with buildings? With buildings, I find that very interesting, because when I came here, Kenyans didn't use the street names. They would tell you this building is here.
Yeah.
Very rarely. So when you said like this street, because I came and I would say this street, and they would say,
what's that?
What's that? Is it where this building is? I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, they're called landmarks for a reason.
I get it, but you would use the street name.
Aviazenda.
What street is it on?
Amukama comes to Nairobi and can't see Afya Center. They're lost.
What street is it on?
Who cares? It's in Afya Center. It's in Nairobi. Afya Center, Ilobi.
Okay.
If you cannot see Afya Center,
you're not in Nairobi. You've not reached.
You are lost.
So
you are totally lost.
It's how I got to know the city.
Mm-hmm.
When you do that for a term, it's amazing how many places you get to know. Yeah, and in those days, there wasn't even the slightest threat. Slightest. You didn't even feel or think that any harm could befall. It did not even occur. And
so it's those days. So when you look at those old photos of Nairobi when it was clean, and there's some 2 or 3 people walking, we could actually see you in one of those photos.
Oh, wow. Yeah, okay. How about we go look for one at the archives?
Government Road.
Yeah.
Just look for
there's a guy there.
Lanky chap. This must be city.
The only place I needed to find was GPO.
Mm-hmm. From there, you're good.
Yes, but the bus, there was a bus.
GPO.
You get the bus. Once you get into that bus will take you to school.
So the bus that goes to Lenana School, what number was it?
Riruta.
So you'd go to Riruta?
Yes, I think it was number 5 if I'm not wrong.
You shook it at the roundabout.
Riruta Satellite.
Where would you alight the bus?
Riruta Satellite, I'm telling you.
At Riruta Satellite.
Yes,
Can we say it one more time?
Riruta Satellite.
There was no Ngong Road then.
Ngong Road existed, but then now you're going somewhere else. If you wanted to go to... So you asked me how you go to school. Riruta Satellite. I believe it was bus number 5. That's where you alighted.
And then?
Then you walked. It wasn't a very long distance to school.
Okay.
But so this idea of understanding your city, after a while, someone mentions a place, you have a picture in your head, you've mapped it.
You know it.
Yes.
Kupotea njia, ndio.
Kujua.
Njia.
Yes, you'd think you know the route, then one moment you find yourself and asking, where is this place?
You found a new place, mate.
Yes.
Okay, so Ndu, just for your information, Afya Center is at the junction of Ronald Ngala Street and Tomboya.
I knew that. I was just wanting to know if you did.
Did you know the roads?
Yes, I did. Tomboya Street, Ronald Ngala. I know. I knew. That's what I was saying.
Okay, where is Bruce House?
What's Bruce House?
Yes, it's the middle of town.
You see? Where is Bruce House?
Middle of town. After GPO, you just walk a little bit, take a few corners, Bruce House.
If I had never been to Bruce House, I wouldn't need... I would know what street it was on.
It's a very famous structure. That is also a landmark in its own right.
Mm-hmm.
But it also tells you someone's age. Because when Bruce House was a landmark, it's like me asking somebody, do you know where Bruner's Hotel was? They'll ask you the who? Yeah. So some of these landmarks are no longer landmarks because they were demolished and other buildings came up.
Right.
So when someone mentioned it, for instance, even when it comes to roads, now I'm a man who grew up in Mombasa. So when someone tells you Digo Road was called Salim Road. Moi Avenue was Kilindini Road. And for a good reason, you took that road, you ended up at Kilindini Harbour. So all I'm saying is, Mombasa being a small town, you could know there was Nyeri, there was Nkrumah, Salim Road or Digo Road.
And you're done.
My friend, you are done. All the other roads you may not particularly know, but if you start with those roads, you'll know them.
Yeah.
But also, kupotea njia ndio.
Yeah.
Right.
It's 6:30. Let's take a quick break, take a look at the traffic, and then we'll be looking at the newspaper headlines shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Are you a woman looking to run for an elective position in the upcoming 2022 general elections? SpiceFM, the home of Kenya's biggest conversation, is inviting you to our studios where you can speak more about your vision and aspirations to an audience of millions of Kenyans as we celebrate women in leadership. For more information, contact us on 0763 969797.
And we're having a Houdini moment because just half an hour ago there was no traffic, and now we're looking at the Thika Superhighway and already a bumper-to-bumper situation, at least getting towards the Pangani underpass. All the way then from the Utali Drift, it's moving on slowly as you get into the city. Kiambu Road, however, has maintained status and is not too crazy in terms of traffic. We're looking at nothing coming out of Westlands today, so that's a good thing. Where did all the people go? That's the question. Jogo Road this morning is not looking too bad. The Southern Bypass, free and clear. Langata Road is the surprise of the morning. No traffic there at all. However, we're looking at North Airport Road, then going out towards that Embakasi interchange junction there. There's some traffic. So it looks like a slow start to February. Keep an eye on things this morning. A few minutes after 6:30, talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
Papers, page 7 of the Standard this morning. Suspect arrested after explosive kills 7. So, this one person was arrested in connection with the Mandera landmine attack, where 7 people were killed and 13 were injured. The injured have been hospitalized at the Mandera County Hospital, and the 7 killed included 1 woman. The IED exploded after a minibus ran over it in Hagasu, which is about 10 kilometers from Mandera town. Reports indicated it was the same place where a bus was blown up by an IED last year. County authorities told the Standard that the vehicle was headed to Mandera town when the incident occurred, and witnesses at the scene said the incident took place in the early hours of the morning. Everything moved so fast. We heard a bang, and when we got there, we saw smoke all over. And that is what was happening at that time of the morning. Over the weekend, the U.S. Embassy had issued a terror alert on Kenya, urging vigilance in public places. Of course, this was also with some European countries like France. So, back to those days.
Fortunately.
But you know the thing is, landmines, IEDs, the thing is, when they are placed, sometimes even people forget that they placed them there.
Yes.
Because when there's heightened tension and terror attacks have been mounted and then they've peaked, one only needs to think of countries that have been at war. Long after the war has ended, the problem that then exists is finding and trying to determine where these things are so that they can be removed, because very many are placed. But the real problem here, and this is always the issue, is it something that you just place by the side of the road the way you'd throw a banana peel out of the window of a bus? Or does it take time for someone to actually place it in a way for the minibus to run over it? Did the minibus veer off the road, or was it on the road?
I mean, obviously, it's not something you toss into the road. I mean, it's clearly there's something that was planted, right?
It was planted on the road.
Yeah.
And one would argue probably at night,
when
when visibility is limited.
Because the accident happened in the wee hours of the morning.
Yeah.
So even the driver wouldn't be able to tell, okay, so something...
you can't tell.
It looks off here.
You can't tell.
You can't tell.
You can't tell.
It's still dark.
You can't tell.
Very unfortunate, but I mean, clearly planned and plotted.
Yep.
As most of these things are with terrorism. Okay, so the big story, shock, 10 billion shillings fine for corrupt 4. Interesting headline. We saw these cases come out yesterday. After a 12-year trial, it has now become painful to steal taxpayers' money after Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi imposes record fines on a corrupt NSSF official, his 3 private sector accomplices, and their firm after they diverted 1.2 billion shillings from pensioners. It's forever been an issue in terms of what happens to the money that you put away with the NSSF, and it's been previously wrangled with corruption cases back and forth. This, after 12 years, coming to light. So just give you some details about that. It's being touted again as a landmark ruling. a magistrate yesterday halted the war against corruption by setting a new record of 9.6 billion shillings in fines for 4 individuals on a company that defrauded the National Social Security Fund of 1.2 billion. The ruling by Anti-Corruption Chief Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi comes as a painful lesson for former NSSF investment manager Francis Muthui, a public servant, and 3 managers of a private company, Discount Securities Limited. Muthui, David Githaiga, Wilfred Weru, and Isaac Nyamongo will either have to pay the fine or serve 14 years in prison each. The shock ruling is likely to send cold shivers across other corruption networks, as the magistrate showed no mercy when he fines the graft lords almost 9 times the 1.2 billion shillings that they stole from the pensioners through fraudulent transactions done in 2008. Their scheme involved buying shares of listed companies through Discount Securities Limited. When he settled down to pass the sentence, Mugambi did not mince his words. He went straight to the point and delivered the shocker in less than 30 minutes to a packed courtroom. His verdict left the convicts and their relatives flabbergasted. One cannot lose sight of the fact that there were massive loss of public funds where a whopping 1.2 billion belonging to pensioners was involved. It is not for them. If it was not for them, this horrendous theft would not have happened. His ruling was a culmination of 12 years of prosecution since the convicts were charged for the theft which almost crippled operations at the NSSF. Investigations into the scandal started in 2008 when the EACC received a report that NSSF had lost 1.6 billion shillings through irregular trading in shares through Discount Securities Limited. So after completing the investigations, EACC recommended charges against 7 individuals, 3 of which were acquitted for lack of evidence Friday last week when the magistrate delivered the judgment. One of the suspects did not live to hear the magistrates acquit him as he before the trial was concluded.
He died before?
Yes, he died. Those acquitted were James Akoya, a former NSSF General Manager for Finance, and Mary Dirangu, a former NSSF Internal Audit Manager. William Murungu, the director of Discount Securities Limited, died in the course of the prolonged trial. Muthui, now interestingly enough, served as the pension fund's investment manager. So he was in the driver's seat here, and he'll have to carry his cross alongside David Githaiga, director, and Weru, the company's finance manager, and Nyamongo, who was the company's investment manager. According to Mugambi, they individually facilitated the conspiracy and ended up causing NSSF to lose a quantifiable amount, which they must be punished for. Don't pay your fine, you serve 14 years in prison. So, this is where we are.
But there's an addition. For the next 10 years, none of them can hold any position in a public.
Yeah.
Yes. For the next 10 years.
It's a good thing. Only dampener to this is the fact that they, of course, are going to appeal this.
Yes,
The case itself took 10 years. How long will the appeal going up to the Supreme Court take?
If some of the improvements that we've heard have happened in the judiciary, it may not take long. Because this is a public interest case. When you look at, or when you hear of the number of pensioners who troop to Nairobi, because they still troop to Nairobi to look for their pensions. And usually you just look for it and you go back.
Right. On a monthly.
Yes.
And I'm just looking at it from the fact that Major Waluke's appeal has not moved.
It's interesting because this story mentions that his decision overshadowed the previous record through anti-corruption cases where Sirisi MP John Waluke and Ambassador Grace Wahungu were fined a total of 1.5 billion for defrauding the NCPB.
You know, Waluke's case is different.
Why?
He has influence and he has friends in decision-making processes. Now, if these fellows, if we are to believe the ruling of the court and hoping that indeed they are the ones who actually made off with this money, there's also the hope that they have some of it. Whether they'll be able to wield enough power to keep delaying these cases and postponing them. Because there are legal ways of delaying cases. Not illegal, just very legal ways of making sure the case takes time. It goes before the judge. The judge, something or the other happens, looks at his calendar, it's taking, gives you August. So, now, what I'm hoping, remember, in prioritizing cases and determining this one ought to be moved swiftly.
Yeah.
Is this one of those cases where the judiciary system will look at it and say, no, NSSF, this is of great public interest.
This is Kenyans' money.
Yes, this is not Kenyans who need the money.
But even the other one for Major Luke and Ambassador Akungo.
Actually,
it's about food.
Actually,
it's about NCPB, maize, food security. People died of hunger.
Eric, in terms of seriousness, I would take the Major Luke case to be even more serious. All I'm saying is, a process such as this, if we are to understand all the innovations that the judiciary system has informed us time and again have taken place, is this time for us to see how those innovations bring such matters to justice swiftly?
Yes.
Because waiting another God knows how many years for this to actually, no.
It just becomes frustrating. Because you see, people have been declared by a competent court as fraudsters.
Yes.
They have been convicted, they have been sentenced. So they're going through the appeal process, surely. And it's a matter of billions of shillings of taxpayers' money.
The same people that you say troop to Nairobi on a monthly to come and get this little amount of money that they've saved over 40 years.
It's their money they've come to collect.
It's their money they've come to collect.
Yes.
And then here you have individuals who've essentially siphoned this money in a fraudulent manner. And then we're saying they can be wrapped up in appeal for the next 10 years. And these folks who are coming to get their money in Nairobi come and they get nothing.
Not only that, they've been walking free all this time.
Yeah.
This is it.
All this time,
they've
by the
been
way.
free. They'll continue being
free because on
so
appeal
how
you're going to walk
do we serve
about.
this as a deterrent?
Yeah. To me, it's not one. It really isn't. Because if you ask me, it serves the opposite. Because anybody who's looking say, well, you know what, that's okay.
In fact, the next thing that you
for the
hear
next
this.
25 years, I could be walking free. I do whatever I need to do. I'm not going to go to jail or have to pay a fine. It's not a deterrent to me.
If you look at the social media yesterday, when the news broke of the kind of punishment that these people have been handed down, the immediate reaction was, they'll appeal. They'll appeal. I mean, you've seen a previous case where people were fined billions of shillings and a man is in parliament.
Imagine. Debating.
And he's probably going to be seeking re-election. So that whole purpose of making these cases, iwe funzo kwako, deterrence to others, it just, so another 10 years appeal, then another one. After all, they're billionaires. They can buy their justice. This is why now we look at the judiciary and say, Madam Chief Justice, set up a proper bench and say this bench sits without stopping.
For such cases.
For this particular appeal, move without cease. Good news. Patients can now breathe easy as NHIF and hospitals resolve rates row. The NHIF card holders can now breathe a sigh of relief after private hospitals and the Ministry of Health agreed to resolve a pay standoff that has been going on for a while. So the matter was resolved yesterday after an extensive meeting that brought together representatives from the Ministry of Health, the NHIF, and the private hospitals. The meeting was called following a standoff between NHIF and the private sector. Wait, Masika Henda is creating an impression that they have actually resolved.
No, they haven't actually. They've just extended
So what they have done is, according to the CAS for Health, Dr. Mercy Mwangangi, we have reached an agreement that there will be no halting of services by the private sector, and people should not be worried. We'll be coming up with how payment rates will be done. So they have extended the pre-existing agreement by a further how many months?
2.
So that they can have more time to
deliberate,
have a conversation and resolve this matter.
Yep.
You know what? Those conversations did not take place in 6 months, 7 months.
You don't see them taking place in 2?
Well, they must take place, but the way the private sector is trying to push, they're not going to get their way. No, the NHIF is now a different mongrel. The NHIF they're dealing with today,
it's not the one they were dealing with in
December.
December.
The one they were dealing with in December.
No,
it's different, and they have got to come to terms with the fact that this is a new NHIF.
Indeed, I said I did not think that they were going to let people swim in these murky waters of not being able to get medical care. But at the same time, it looks like a regroup. For me, it looks like a regroup of NHIF to come back and say, look, folks, this is how we're going to play this game. And they're going to need a couple of days to be able to do that. But in the meantime, let's not let Kenyans suffer, right? Let them go to hospital and be able to, let's extend what it is that we currently have. But then let's sit at this table for you guys to understand that this is how things are going to roll from now.
It's even different. So if the private sector had actually accepted the previous deal, for example, for dialysis, on account of they are going to have more numbers, and at that point, NHIF was telling them, we have 5 million active members. Now, can you imagine now telling them you have 30 million active members? If it's about numbers, come on.
Take it. Take it or take it. Take it or take it, essentially, is what we are saying here. And I think that is I really do think that's what's going to put on the table. I do not see a situation where NHIF is going to come and say, okay, you need a little bit more in terms of cash that we give for services. It's not going to happen.
In an election year, it won't happen.
No.
And I bring in the issue of election. There are times when I look at functions of quasi-government agencies in the government, and I get the impression that even with the edicts that the president pronounces, these are independent units. And I mean independent in this sense. The president can say what he likes. There'll be a question, say, yes, Mtukufu, yes. Then they'll proceed to just do exactly what they want.
As they like.
Yes. Because when a presidency comes to an end, there are things that take place in this country that defy any logic that you may know or understand. I even get the impression that there are units, there are individuals who just defy whatever it is. They decide,
you're going home.
What's going to happen?
You're going home.
If I'm going home, so are you. So we're both going home. So
let's go home
this
together.
window that I have, I am going to make sure that I subscribe fully and I pay fully for the Kenyan games. Okay? You know the Kenyan games? Pilfering public funds.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's a sport that we subscribe to.
WWF PPF.
Yes.
It's 11 to 7. Let's take a quick break and then we'll look at what's in the business stories today. Good morning.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings.
Okay. 10 minutes to 7. What are you looking at, CT? In the business paper.
I'm looking at two things. Two things. One is actually in the Star. And this one I have to mention. Remember the Political Parties Amendment Bill 2021?
Yes.
Now, one of the things that it brought to the fore is something that I'm still pondering over. I don't fully understand it, but the input to me looks dire. Okay? Let me read it so that it isn't me paraphrasing. The Auditor General will no longer scrutinize the books of accounts of political parties annually, despite the billions of taxpayers' money allocated to them. You people are supposed to look up and wonder,
what?
Thank you very much.
Say it again.
All right. This means taxpayers will be unable to demand accountability on the use of their billions allocated to parties through the Political Parties Fund. The Political Parties Amendment Bill 2021 that was recently signed into law consequently blocks the auditor from auditing main parties funded by the Exchequer.
I don't get it.
Hey.
The auditor cannot audit parties.
Yes. Let me read so that you understand. There's Parliament which passed the controversial law deleted a key provision from the parent act, the Provisional Parties Act 2022, denying the auditor sweeping powers. We've clawed back. We clawed back with Chapter 6. We're now clawing back with this. Essentially, the transparency that this particular constitution sought to bring about in bits and pieces it's actually being bastardized as we watch. Now, surely, if political parties are given money and then you don't audit it, what message are you sending?
Do as you like.
The Auditor General's office is an establishment of the Constitution.
It is.
There's a law that governs how the office of the Auditor General operates. You audit all
Everything.
public funds. This one says that you shall not. Parties now can more easily receive money for political parties from the government, but they'll not be audited. How?
Let me tell you what they deleted. That was section 31, 3. It provided for this, that every political party shall be audited annually by the Auditor General and shall be submitted to the registrar and tabled at the National Assembly. That one is what they removed. So it's no longer there.
And there's no substitution at all on the issues of audit.
That's why I use the word bastardized.
But then, does it need that for the Auditor General to come in and audit your books as long as you're receiving public funds? I mean, I don't assume that every parastatal has that clause that says the Auditor General shall audit your... That will be an interesting one. That, if indeed that's the case, I agree. We've not just clawed back. We have lost it.
Eons.
We have lost it.
It's
Two
over.
things you're looking at. Second thing.
Number 2. Okay. What's this thing? Right. This one is an interesting one. Again. Why KQ stopped flying monkeys to US labs? That is interesting.
Very.
The national carrier, Kenya Airways, will stop transporting monkeys from the Indian Ocean island of Mauritius to the United States for lab experiments after the contract expired in February.
Okay.
Spicy headline, isn't it?
It is.
Whose contract, I wonder? US government and Kenya Airways, Mauritius and Kenya Airways, US and Mauritius. Continue.
We're just a carrier.
Voila.
Kenya Airways chairman Michael Joseph confirmed to the Business Daily Monday that the decision will also affect other wild animals. KQ as an airline is known for its international code, made the announcement after a truck transporting the long-tailed macaque monkey bred in a farm in Mauritius crashed last week in Danville, Pennsylvania.
I said Pennsylvania. The way they say it.
That place, Pennsylvania. God almighty. Couldn't this lorry have crashed somewhere else? That is easier to pronounce.
So the crash
was in that place which I mentioned. Okay. Attracting the criticism from animal rights activists in the US. Pennsylvania.
So this is what opened up the whole issue of even cancellation of contracts.
People started kicking a fuss, and those people who
they did not know that there were monkeys we were importing from Africa for.
This one. 4 monkeys escaped. Following the collision between the truck and the pickup, prompting residents to join the local police in the search in a nearby forest. Okay. You asked the question, so let me answer. The shipment was headed to the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, the approved quarantine facility and lab in Florida, after arriving at New York's Kennedy Airport from Mauritius aboard a KQ flight. Okay? So, there's drama behind that headline.
Clearly.
Okay? But, these monkeys are not natives of that particular place.
I'm just imagining for Mauritian monkeys in Pennsylvania.
So wait, so the monkeys are not native to Mauritius?
No. They are native
They're native to Mauritius.
But they escaped in the US.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they
but
got
they're
to
being
America.
bred specifically for CDC in America.
Testing.
testing.
And then they are loaded onto a plane.
The plane arrives.
Plane arrives.
Doesn't have a problem. Delivers. Truck on
Put
its
on a
way
truck.
to CDC, quarantine center.
Crashes.
Yeah. Hits van, pickup, monkeys inside, take off. They see something familiar called forest. Head
Out.
there. Yes. So now, 4 African monkeys are in a US forest.
The protests were over what?
Of animal rights, meaning you bring into question. There are people who are even against this using monkeys
Animals
for lab
for-
tests.
Yeah, animal testing, right.
Something they're against. Then there's the issue of how you manage animals. It's a slew of. There are many, many things that come into play.
Right.
Yes.
And for that reason, now CDC will stop testing because I just don't.
So
There's
how many
there's
things
something
are
that's
happening
missing.
here as a result of this? We're saying that now Kenya Airways will stop carrying from Mauritius to
There's
the
a
US.
cancellation of a
We will
contract
say that
between-
CDC will stop then lifting primates from Mauritius to the US. How many contracts are being cancelled
Or
here
is
as a result of
CDC
this?
stopping
Remember,
to
I
do
started by saying
animal
that
trials?
the contract had expired.
Okay.
Oh, it had expired anyway. It was not as a result
Yes.
of this
No.
incident. Okay.
This was now giving you background so you understand the processes and what actually happens. By the way, this has just brought the issue to the fore. These monkeys have been transported to the US for the length of a particular contract. So it wasn't a month's contract.
Yeah.
Contracts are usually
It's been some
yearly.
time.
Yes, and these monkeys are known to be used for these lab tests.
It's interesting that they are bred specifically for this in Mauritius.
Well, there are those that are bred, but there are those that just go about their business. The way monkeys go about their business.
Escape from Madagascar.
We also
Oh,
have monkeys
sorry.
that we breed here at Lulua Forest at the Primate Research Center.
Yeah.
And do
Specifically for?
research.
Testing.
Remember,
Research.
Cambridge has actually a center that deals with primate research, just so that you understand. Yes. It's something that the scientific world is not unfamiliar with. Yes.
Karish says the monkeys also realize the American dream.
And you know the story doesn't tell us whether they were found or not.
No.
Monkeys forests.
Same.
Same forest.
Same forest.
Different monkeys.
Oh, keep it right here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. This is the Situation Room. We're live streaming the show on Facebook and on YouTube, and we are live on SpiceFM around the country. Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi. In the next hour, we have the Honorable Jude Njomo. He is the MP for Kiambu constituency. There's a county and constituency called Kiambu, and there's another one called Kiamba. Keep up with the times. It's 7 o'clock. Good morning.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire Dennis Aseto. The Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission has registered 548,188 new voters in the first 2 weeks of the enhanced continuous voter registration exercise against a target of 2,987,138. According to IEBC chairperson Ofula Chibukati, an additional 1,054 voters have been recorded in the diaspora. The registration exercise entered its third and final week Monday and is set to go on until February 6th in the country, while the diaspora registration goes on for 15 days after the respective date of commencement. IEBC is targeting to register 2,987,138 voters during the second phase of the exercise. Nairobi has recorded the highest turnover so far, with 356,590 voters registered in the second phase, followed by Kiambu at 201,340 and Nakuru 152,278 new voters. and the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission commenced enhanced continuous voter registration in United Arab Emirates and Canada. In UAE, the exercise is taking place at the Kenya Embassy in Abu Dhabi and Kenya Consulate in Dubai. While in Canada, the exercise will kick off today at the Kenya High Commission in Ottawa, Kenya Honorary Consulate in Toronto, and Kenya Honorary Consulate in Vancouver. According to a statement by IEBC, these have been made possible following the easing of COVID-19 restrictions in the United Arab Emirates and Canada. The Commission will extend registration in Canada and UAE by the number of days lost due to so as to ensure Kenyans residing in the two countries are accorded 15 days to register as voters. This as ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi has now warned the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission against being used to champion certain individuals' wishes in the August 9th general election. Mudavadi says the IEBC is mandated to ensure that the elections are free and fair. Mudavadi said the Kenya Kwanza Alliance will emerge victorious in the coming election.
Darubini iko kwa IEBC. We want to make it very clear. Tafadhali IEBC, musitumiwe kamwe ama mtu asidhubutu kumutumia so that you can be used to legitimize an illegitimate project. Hatutaki. We don't want IEBC to be used to legitimize an illegitimate project. Sisi tunataka Wakenya wachague kiongozi yule ambaye wanapenda.
Now, the Orange Democratic Movement has dismissed a statement issued by former Kakamega Senator Boni Halwale, claiming that he had been endorsed by a section of its grassroots leaders from Ikolomani. Halwale took to social media to announce that he had met with ODM leaders from Ikolomani, who he claimed had endorsed his bid for Kakamega governorship. According to the ODM party, however, the persons Halwale met were imposters purporting to be ODM members. Halwale is allied to Deputy President William Ruto's political camp and is hoping to succeed Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, who is serving his second and final term. Now, Speaker of the National Assembly, Johnson Muthui, has clarified that political parties have until the end of March to submit their membership list to the Registrar of Political Parties. Contrary to a Gazette notice issued by the Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission giving April 9th as the deadline, Muthui explained that the newly enacted political parties law allows political parties to file their membership list by end of March. Muthui cautioned aspirants of various political seats to be extra careful with the dates or risk being locked out of the poll. He made the remarks as political parties across the country continue to race against time to put their houses in order ahead of the August 9th national elections. Now, former National Social Security Fund investment manager Francis Zuriel Muthui has been fined 2.4 billion shillings or served 12 years in prison for defrauding the pension fund. 3 other former employees of NSSF, David Murungu Gidalga, Isaac Nyakundi Nyamongo and Wilfred Weru, have also been fined 803 million shillings each or 12 years in prison. The Discount Securities Limited will pay a fine of 4 billion shillings. The 4 NSSF officers who have been convicted on different counts after being found culpable of loss of pensioners fund amounting to 1.2 billion shillings have been sentenced by Chief Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi. The Ministry of Health has inked a deal with private hospitals that would see the stalemate between them and the National Health Insurance Fund temporarily resolved. According to a statement by NHIF, the Health Cabinet Secretary Muthui Kagwe, NHIF Chief Executive Officer Peter Kamunyo and various private hospitals held a consultative meeting to deliberate on a directive issued last week. The deal: private hospitals resolved to continue allowing NHIF card holders to access medical services in their facilities until June 30th. Now, 2 fugitives who were hiding in Kenya after allegedly committing murder in the United Kingdom have been deported. Kennedy Monteiro and Siyada Abdi Hakim Mahmood were arrested Friday in Nairobi's Kisuma. State News from the Directorate.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
A few minutes after 7 o'clock, and it looks like traffic is jam-packed on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city. Quite a lot of traffic there. We're looking at Mombasa Road as well. In and outbound traffic, quite heavy. The Southern Bypass, obviously, is going to help out this morning. We're looking at Outer Ring, and it's jam-packed. Pitter-patter of traffic all the way through to easily the Thika Superhighway coming around the back. And speaking of that, Thika Superhighway, then connecting with that junction at Outer Ring, very, very slow today. Kiambu Road now has joined. Took her a little bit, but there's traffic there, inbound traffic. And also on Limuru Road today is in and outbound and moving very, very slowly. Jogo Road then heading into the city, looking at that whole industrial area circuit. That's doing its thing. And there's action on Langata Road this morning as well. That has started. Uhuru Highway building up. We are in traffic hour and we've started early this Tuesday. In all things, be safe. Let us know what's happening in your neck of the woods. Talk to us. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7. Good morning. How are you doing? This is Kenya's biggest conversation on the first day of February 2022. It's the second hour of the show, and CT has the day's proverb.
Kupotea njia ndio kujua njia.
Kupotea njia ndio kujua njia.
Potea njia, then.
Pata potea.
Oh, I hadn't thought of it, but yes, pata potea. Yes. Lose your way.
Find another.
Yes, find your way. Or better still,
Learn.
the only way you get to understand your path is by losing your way.
So mistakes are a good thing. Mistakes are a lesson.
Mistakes are a profound lesson.
Failures are a lesson.
You know, when I was looking at Proverbs and why I came to this one here, I was thinking of a documentary I once saw of people, guides who take people who like these nature tours, walking through forests and things like that.
Yeah.
Now, the commentary was interesting in that those who were in that particular group, as far as they're concerned, the forest looked the same. And they couldn't understand how this person said, no, this is the path. And there was no path to speak of.
This is how we came.
Yes. And they would end up exactly where they're supposed to end up. And they looked back. You turn, you can't tell whether you follow this or that or the other, because again, it looks the same. But this person, so that the debate was, do these people have a certain sense of direction that other people don't have? Or it's just they're very familiar with the terrain, so the differences that you can't see,
They can.
they can, and they know it with clarity.
Yeah.
Yes. But how did they acquire it? Because many of them have that job because they grew up there.
Yeah.
They've lived there all their lives, not most of their lives. So they're familiar.
True.
There are things that they've marked.
Yes, they are.
Because they know, this kind of, this tree and the way it branches off to the left or to the right, so they mark it. They definitely know their way around it. Kupotea njia
Ndio
kujua
kujua
njia.
Yes.
We'll be having a conversation with Jude Njomo shortly when he arrives. He got stuck in traffic somewhere. Before he does that, let me tell you the story of a young man called Salim Rashid Mohammed. Salim Rashid Mohammed was born in 1996 in Mombasa. He grew up in Majengo, Mombasa. He was a very bright student all the way from nursery to secondary school, top of the class. Scored an A- when he sat for his KCSE exams at the Aga Khan Secondary School in 2014. He was called to go to Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology. He said, what? Nah. So he went to Turkey to study computer engineering. Now, this is where things now start going south. Because nobody knows how or when. But apparently, The young, very brilliant kid called Salim Rashid Mohammed was at some point then recruited to join terror organization ISIS. He was deported by Turkey after being suspected to be a member of ISIS. Came back to Kenya. And police reports indicate that Salim had a pending terror-related case before the magistrates court in Kwale before he disappeared in 2020. He was arrested at Kombani in Kwale in 2017 in a house where police said they found materials that were used by the Al-Shabaab. He was facing terror-related charges following his arrest before he was released on a cash bail of 1.5 million shillings. What happened? The young man took off and is said to have been among the youth who crossed into Mozambique in the Cabo Delgado to join the Al-Shabaab group of Mozambique. Remember the one that's affiliated to ISIS. Because of the crisis in Mozambique, neighboring countries, Rwanda and South Africa, sent in troops into Mozambique to go and rescue Cabo Delgado. Of course, the ISIS members there took off. Some of them went into the DRC. Last week, a couple of young men were somewhere in the DRC and were in a village and they were begging for food. The villagers alerted the local security forces and the Congolese armed forces arrested them. They looked at this young man and they saw, we have seen a picture of this young man being circulated by. And this is how Salim Rashid Mohammed was arrested last week in the DRC. He's due to be extradited back to Kenya after the DRC forces complete interrogating him over claims that he was a member of the Allied Democratic Forces in Eastern Congo near the border with Uganda. He has a pending case in Kenya. Now, his father, Mohammed Rashid, says he last saw his son on December 4th, 2020. He has just been wondering, so what happened to my son? He knows the stories about him having joined a terror network. He was thinking maybe my son died. Just knowing that the son is alive. He says, I'm glad to know that at least he's alive. And I hope that he'll go through fair trial. Due process will be followed.
What caught my attention in that story is the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Bright young man.
Yep.
Why did he not continue? After passing his exam, why did he? The next step was to perhaps go for some training. Why did that not happen?
He went to Turkey.
To study?
Yep. He went to Turkey to study computer engineering after refusing to join JKUAT. While in Turkey, or before Turkey, or en route to Turkey, something happened. Because Turkish authorities arrested him and deported him because of suspicion of being...
How soon after he went to Turkey did this arrest take place?
What we are seeing didn't start in Turkey.
Exactly. Definitely before he went there. The recruitment process must have started a long time before that. Because they take their time. And we've heard stories. There are many stories written, documented about how this actually happens. You know, start to have a conversation with you and then they leave you, come back to you, start to inculcate you slowly. So by the time he got to Turkey, surely the groundwork had already been done.
By the time the security forces in Turkey can look at you and decide, no, this person, there must be signs, there must be something that you're doing. So unless we're saying that in the short time he was in Turkey, acquired this, this young man had been recruited.
While here?
Yes.
It's actually possible that also one of the reasons why he refused to go to JKUAT here is because he wanted to go to Turkey and probably cross over into Syria.
Yes. But think about it. All these things are not in the name of terror, they're in the name of religion. And it's a very compelling and very convincing standpoint from which an argument is begun. If somebody is already inclined towards their faith and they're doing this in the name of their faith, it takes me back to history. When Christendom believed that the only way to spread Christianity was to go around killing people who didn't believe in that faith. Because that's what the Crusades was all about.
Sure.
In a nutshell, that's what it was all about.
Yep.
Now, tell me, how did that work out?
Well, not really. Well, people were slaughtered to death.
Precisely. And you know, it set in place a certain platform on which not only were we going to have many, many years, one could argue centuries later, the aftermath of those decisions are still being felt today.
Sure.
And simply because some people, all they did was believe. That's it. It's a terrible thing.
It is.
And then so go ahead.
I mean, it really is. And, we had heard little tidbits of this story previously. His father had said at some point, you know what? If he's been found, it's okay, but let him stand a fair trial, regardless of what the case may be. Before that, they didn't know where he was.
It's I'm looking at it from those angles, from the father's angle. I mean, as the boy is growing up and he is so bright, he scores an A-, you are thinking, okay, we have done a good job of raising this child. He has been such a good boy. He's actually been performing very well. He's being diligent. He's not like the others. Kumbe. Things just turn.
Yeah.
And you can imagine what kind of emotions the father has gone through, even to the point where he hears the son has been arrested in DRC. He's like, I thank you, God, that he's alive.
He's alive.
Because he still hopes that this young man can be reformed. He can come back to the right path. He still believes that his son can be rescued. The agony that he's going through. And sometimes, all we focus on is on the terror suspect. Not their history, not their background, not
the units they come from.
Yes. And whatever everybody else is going through.
But can you imagine the turmoil that he would have gone through, and then to the point where he says, you know what? He's alive. So if he's done something wrong, let him stand trial, let him have a fair trial, but he's alive. And this is the thing that organizations like Haki Africa, just now looking at another side of it, whereby folks being arrested, then, being kept away from public, you hear from their family members the other side of the story, and they say, you know what? Let's just know if these guys are alive. Let's just know if they're alive. If they are, they've been arrested, then charge them. But to keep them away from us, then it wouldn't be a good thing. But here you are now seeing the other side of the story. And you would hear from the terror of terror, really, how bad these things are. But then look at the other side of it, where these people come from families. They come from families who, look, doesn't matter what they do, they love them, right?
Yep.
And they're saying, it's okay. We've known now that they're alive. Let them stand trial. But it must be a horrendous experience to have to go through. That all this time you've hedged your bets on these children as they grow up, and you've said, they're going to come out to be something. And then they choose this particular path, and you can only hope.
It's the same kind of thing. You remember the young man who was leading the attack at the Garissa University? Young man who's gone to University of Nairobi, has been a bright kid, comes from a steady family, and then joins Al-Shabaab. And the family is the one that even reports and says, you know what? This guy has gone missing. And the family, of course, suspects that he has joined Al-Shabaab. I can imagine what the family was going through, thinking, okay, come on. Like, really? Do you know how many people from this village make it to the university? You have gone to the University of Nairobi. You are studying. And then, and he didn't come from a family that you could say, poverty. He came from a family that was a bit well off in the community.
Yes.
I think it was the chief.
Eric, you have actually mentioned a very important point, because you're asking yourself the genesis. What is it? It may not be the family, but it's, should we say, the influence of one's peers. We are very often influenced by the times in which we live in, but that time represents certain ideologies, certain ways of life, and these are exhibited in the lives of people who belong to that generation. Now, where am I going with this? I look at my neck of the woods, and for years, we had a clear understanding that region had been marginalized. And one could point at examples. Kikomi died, breweries closed shop. Essentially, there were no industries to speak of in that town. literally. So what these options that young people had, either you leave the town and go elsewhere, but if you stayed in town, what is odd, then came this entire culture of young men who train in martial arts, bodybuild, hoping that they'd land a job as air bouncer. There's a limit how many bouncers a place can have. Or they call themselves security, but essentially they were hired political goons. Okay? It became a growth industry. And you heard of a group called Baghdad Boys. How that group came into being, with the time they morphed and you had other groups. Some call themselves Marines, others call themselves China. When you meet members of these groups and you talk to them, you realize some of these fellows did very well in school. Really well, which means they're actually bright. But now, if that is the life they have led, and you ask, in this particular instance, it was opportunities that they felt were not available locally. You look at Mungiki, which was also labeled as a terror group.
Yep.
How did they manage to attract? Because they're not forcing people to join. People were joining willingly.
Yep.
Why were people joining? And it kept growing and growing, and then it kept morphing as well. How did that happen? You look at the Sabaot Defense Force. We look and say these were thugs who were cutting off people's ears and noses. But they had to have a body of members for them to be able to carry out what they were carrying. What is it that led them to this particular...
They believed in something.
They did.
They believed they were fighting a certain cause.
They did.
When Yoweri Kaguta Museveni was leading the people, he believed in something. Now, you could have called him a terrorist at that point. In the end, was he?
Same with Kagame.
Yes.
But they believed in a cause. Ask yourself, when this pronouncement, Pwani si Kenya, and then groups arise. Why do these people, what is it that gets people to rally behind such people? Something. So when you talk about, giving psychological counseling, can you imagine a young person growing up in an area and they believe intensely that they are not like everybody else?
Yeah.
You know, you've opened this person up to a lot of other influence that you would rather hope they're not exposed to.
Sure. And you know what? I think also looking at what happens is that the opportunity to act out a thought that may have passed through a mind at some point. So there is somebody who is giving life to something that may have crossed your mind, but either you didn't have the opportunity to live out that thought. Because isn't that what we see? That those who've been radicalized over time,
yes,
that they may have had that thought at some time, but they never had the opportunity or the resource to actually bring it to life. And so here is somebody who comes in and starts to recruit you and gets you to become radical in your thinking. It's not far removed from thoughts that you and I have.
Yep.
Let's just be very honest.
Yep.
But it just means that opportunity and resource meet at a nexus where somebody takes it and runs with it. And then it fuels a thought. Because what have we said? Thoughts become words, words become actions. It's the same concept.
Think of the people who are jailed in this country, who are even referred to as the 7 bearded sisters. Had the word terrorist become common currency as it is now, those guys would have been called terrorists.
Yep. Yep.
And that group of people that eventually led to the formation of what we call Ford then, they were simply opposing the government and saying, no, this we can't have. In these modern times, they would have been terrorists.
They would have been called terrorists.
The saving grace we now have is what we call a new constitution of freedom. Some of the discussions we have here, you finish the show.
You step out of this door.
You're being waited for downstairs. So when you look at whether it is the environment in which someone lives in, or the prevailing understanding of certain situations, the prevailing understanding that some people are marginalized more than others, the prevailing circumstances that you haven't been given a fair shake of this so-called national cake, all that makes it possible for someone, as you say, correct, to be radicalized.
So are we saying that the system failed Salim Rashid Mohammed?
I am
and his father.
I am saying the system contributed. I'm saying
the system pushed him there.
It contributed.
Bright kid, grew up very well, went to Aga Khan Secondary School in Mombasa, scored an A-, but of course qualified to go to university. JKUAT. the father could afford to take him to school, and yet he ended up the system did what?
Contributed.
But let me tell you something. You see, because this is why I'm saying that we're looking at time, right? It was clear that there were conversations from parents to this young man that they wanted him to go to university, right?
Yeah.
He refused at that point. So this is what I'm saying. By the time he got to Turkey, the damage, quote unquote, had already been done. Even at the time where the father is making a suggestion, let's go to school. Look at a system whereby would essentially encourage you to do that. There was a skill clearly that he had. There was a path which his parents saw that he could follow. And they said, you know what, in order of continuance of this path, go to school a little bit more. Hone your skill, right? Yeah. Through education. Yeah. Already in his mind, this was not an avenue that he would have taken because those seeds had already been planted. I dare say even at that time. Look at Sierra Leone. And look at the child soldiers. What happened with the child soldiers? They got them at the age where they were being socialized. We had child soldiers at the age of 6 years old to come and have a conversation with somebody, and that's where it started. At the time where you should be going to school and learning things and being socialized in your community and your basic unit, that's when they hit.
A faithful of the Islamic religion will take the child to madrasa. So that they can understand the religion. Yeah. Very many madrasas were shut down in very many of our towns where they existed.
For the reason,
it was understood that there were people who were using madrasa as a point for radicalization.
Yeah.
Okay. Beyond just teaching what they were supposed to teach, they were giving it a little boost. Okay. I was a head teacher in a school where my students were predominantly belonged to the Islamic faith. When the students were free enough and were able to talk to you, this idea that simply coming from the coast meant you're marginalized had been planted then. And they'd say, we've been marginalized. And you ask the question, you have a discussion. They believe, because they were being open, they would tell you, look at this, look at the other, look at the other. And then you'd say, no, but look. Meaning, it's a discussion I had on many occasions with different students. And what surprised me was how many students were of that same mindset. There's the discussion that you as an adult has with a young person. They're discussions they have among themselves. Now, when you get to hear this discussion they have among themselves, you will be surprised. And the influence that we speak of is often at that level. People tend to, peers tend to influence each other a lot more than anybody else can. They speak the same language. So the fact that you don't hear their voices doesn't mean you understand what they're thinking or what they say among themselves.
No.
What incidences of marginalization are they quoting?
We're
talking about the 90s.
I'm talking about the 90s.
Right.
It's land. And they look at development. Remember, there was no county government then.
Yeah.
And they'd say, okay, look at the development of our city, Mombasa. Or it was a town then. Okay. Our land has been taken. You see, someone of that age, when you ask which land, and when you say taken, by whom, it's not a question that they will readily give you a response with evidence. No, they will not. But it's what they believe. Now, once you get that into the system, and that's what you believe, because literally every young person I talk to on that subject will tell me more or less the same thing. That's what led me to believe it's a discussion they've had. So they believe the same thing.
Indeed.
You know, what they were responding to, in my mind at that particular time, I thought, this is what failed leadership brings about. Because at that point in time, when someone says they're going to bring development, actually they could. Because your proximity and your relationship with the government was very central to whether development was going to arrive in your neck of the woods or not. There was no ifs and buts about it. But if you had leaders who simply went there and sat and did their own thing, well, very little did come to you. Why is it, for instance, you find after all these decades of independence, that it has taken one governor in Kwale to bring about monumental changes? Part of the reason is he is a good governor and has sought to do good. But secondly, not much had been done before then.
So even if he did a
There's
little
a lot
bit,
of ground to cover.
there was monumental difference if he just came and did a little bit. Because comparatively to what was there before,
yes, exactly.
There was nothing.
Prior to him, all those who had been there had been shadow dancing, giving a little bit of this and understanding that people don't have much to begin with. They'll be happy with a little. Somebody comes and opens the door and tells you, actually, what you're seeing was a sliver of light through that crack. Let me just open this door wide so that you can actually understand what this light actually looks like.
Right.
And suddenly you're thinking, you mean this thing has been possible all along? And the answer is yes. It was.
Time for us to take a break. 29 minutes to 8 o'clock. We're still waiting for Jude Njomo, the MP for Kiambu. Austin says, Spice, your guest will not make it today. Traffic outside your office is crazy. Let's take a look at the traffic, how the roads are looking like, including Mombasa Road, which many of our guests this morning will be using. A very good morning to you. This is Kenya's biggest conversation.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
What does the 14th of February mean to you? Is it Valentine's Day, Singles Awareness Day, or just another day on the calendar?
I don't need the 14th.
Either way, we're celebrating love in all its variants. This February, if you're here for love or just laughs, you're welcome to join us at the Tamarind Tree Hotel, Nairobi on the 12th of February for a good time and zero pressure to be anything but yourself. Book a room with your squad, your partner, or by yourself and enjoy dinner and a fun night with performances from Atemi, MC Jesse, and more. Hosted by Spice FM's Barbara Mbaka. If you're like us, you'll take it to the next level and take advantage of the late checkout and breakfast the next day. Join us at Love and Laughter by reserving your spot now for 16,500 shillings for a single and 20,000 shillings for two, payable to paybill number 365582. Account name Valentine's. For more information, call 0748 313 414.
It's a mostly cloudy morning in Nairobi at 17, highs of 25 and lows of 15. Sunny at 15 in Nakuru, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Partly sunny conditions at 13 in Nyeri, highs of 25 and lows of 12. While it's sunny in Eldoret at 14, we'll see highs of 25 and lows of 14. Mostly sunny at 25 in Mombasa, highs of 32 and lows of 25. And in Malindi, it's sunny as well at 26. It'll go to highs of 31 and lows of 25. Kisumu is cloudy at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 19. While in Kakamega, mostly cloudy conditions at 18, highs of 28 and lows of 16. It's sunny in Kampala at 20. That'll be today's low, going to highs of 27. Continues to rain in Dar es Salaam. We'll see highs of 31 and lows of 25. It's mostly cloudy at 13 in Johannesburg. It'll go to highs of 25 today and still remains foggy in Lagos at 23. It'll go to highs of 33. 33 will also be the high in Kinshasa, where it's mostly cloudy, currently at 23.
There are so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi hii umbo yako iko na pembe.
Hii ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Okay, so we're wondering what's happening on Mombasa Road this morning. Kyoko says, gods of Mombasa Road forgot to wake up today. ICD Ngombe Loop partially blocked by a trailer. The Masai Road entrance to Mombasa Road has been blocked by slow-moving highway traffic. Stick to rivers and lakes that you're used to. Okay, so that truck has stalled, and that's what's blocking traffic as you're coming from the ICD route. So it's very, very slow. Folks who are using the escape route, unfortunately, are stuck in the thick of things this morning. So Mombasa Road today is quite messy. If you can get out before the ICD route and use the southern bypass, you should be all right. But anybody who's stuck in that right now, I'm sorry, folks, but you're going to have to be there for some time until that opens up. So we're looking at in and outbound traffic on Mombasa Road this morning. Other parts of the city continue to clog up. Looking at the Thika Superhighway, that continues for quite some in terms of stretch, and Kiambu Road as well. Westlands going into that whole area, quite a lot of traffic this morning. It looks like Tuesday and February have started with a big bang. Be careful wherever you are this morning. Let us know where you might be stuck. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done.
3 minutes to 8.
So, the Pioneer CBC learners begin their first national assessment today. All right. When the CBC as a new curriculum was rolled out a couple of years ago, we looked at a national assessment to be taken as those who will then be moving from the current primary system into junior secondary school. And they sit that today. I'm just going to give you details of that. Pupils in grades 3, 4, and 5 in primary schools began national tests as part of their continuous assessment. Remember that there will be a big continuous assessment yearly. So you're not now looking at the one big exam in KCSE or KCPE, so that they look at you in terms of your ability over time, right? The assessment test involves tests provided to learners by the Kenya National Examination Council. The tests are uploaded on their portal and are to be downloaded and administered to learners. In Mombasa County, scores of pupils started the test yesterday, with teachers maintaining that they had adequately prepared the pupils before the national tests. All right. So this is happening across the country. Examinations get off to a good start despite a few hitches in some schools in downloading the tests. Teachers are lamenting on the high cost of printing the exam papers, while some complain of no internet. So this is a new system whereby it's unloaded onto the platform and then you then are responsible for printing it out. But some are saying, how do we then meet up when we're dealing with some of these issues? We cannot print, we don't have internet. How are we going to do it? But it's delivered to you. It's delivered to you. It's delivered to you in the same form that is delivered to everybody across the country. So you need to figure it out. Those sitting for the CBA, this assessment, are in grade 3, 4, and 5. The same sat for an assessment integrated learning areas last term, and they are now handling theoretical papers, right? So this is the first time this would be. The 844 system, previous system of education, is now being phased out. With this national assessment, you can see that is actually a thing of the past. It comprised of 8 years in primary school, 4 in secondary school, and 4 in university. So this is it, guys. If you thought that they were going to roll back on CBC, they're actually not going to do that.
So it's 3s, 4s, and 5s that are sitting now the assessment.
The national assessment, exactly.
Right.
And so 5s, what happens with 5s when they finish this current term, which ends in the next few weeks, is that they will now go into 6, which is now the last class before they get into junior secondary.
Right.
Right.
And these are the pioneers.
These are the pioneers. These are the ones that start the first class 4 assessment.
Grade
couple of
3.
Yeah, the grade 3s. Yeah.
Yes.
It's happening. Then, of course, the conversation continues to be around, is there adequate infrastructure to make sure that this curriculum is rolled out properly? Should we have taken some time to sit back and say, okay, we need to figure this out properly? Or do we jump in the deep end and hope to swim, or at least float at the very least, you know? So it looks like all being said and done, it doesn't really matter. We're going with this.
I think it's important to go with it. I think so. Because one of the things that we now get to see, for example, you see, you're sitting a national exam and it needs to be downloaded, and then you realize all the challenges that you're facing, technology-wise, like the schools in Homa Bay that did not start their exams. Because why? Because technology. The network was congestion with the network, which hampered downloading of exam papers. Teachers had to travel some 30 kilometers to access cyber cafes to download the exams. Now, these ones are the ones where you ask the question, so it was not an emergency exam. We have known all along that we're going to be doing an exam
Next
the
year.
final week of, the first week of February. We knew. So how is it that you have issues with the internet here, issues with the internet there? What has been happening all along?
I think one of the reasons why people insist on piloting is for such reasons. That in piloting, and not for a day, if you ask me, for a year, you would get to understand what certain fundamental kinks are. But then again, this is Kenya. The Ministry of Education may have ensured that whatever is required for this exam to take place was provided for. It hasn't been reported the internet doesn't exist. No. Something has happened to it. Is it something unusual?
Can it be recommended?
Who are the service providers? Did they not know? Or do you have people who didn't quite understand what to do with this particular system? I mean, questions arise. What we've been told is a problem that has arisen, but it's in one place. What about the other places where this exam is supposedly taking place? What has happened?
But look, the Ministry of Education is not an ISP.
No, it isn't.
Right? So we have the ISPs in place. And the question that you would ask is, for example, in Homa Bay County, the County Director of Education and the other officials in education, had you tested this thing before? Because by the time a headmaster is waking up in the morning and traveling 20 kilometers to Ndiwa town early Monday morning to download papers, by 2 p.m., he had only downloaded only half of the exams.
Come on.
And this is day one of the exam.
Yes, they're supposed to have started the exam in the morning.
That one, the Ministry of Education is not to blame here.
I think it is.
Why upload it? Why upload it so late in the day?
That particular, because other parts of the country are able to conduct themselves and to ensure the exam is done. Sindio.
Well.
What role?
In Kisii, the issues of networks cut across a number of public schools, with head teachers forced to work during weekends. The affected schools are yet to compile the results, according to one of the senior ministry officials at the county level. In Nairobi, several head teachers expressed confidence that, unlike before, the learners are at ease while tackling the tests. You see, in Nairobi, they have internet access. Outside Nairobi, internet limitations.
So the internet access and the problems therein were realized on the day of the exam.
That's what I'm asking. Where were the education officials? That's why I bring the ministry of officials here to task.
Yeah, those officials are the ones I'm bringing down. Not the ministry. I'm saying the people who are in charge in those specific places. What on earth were they doing? That really is my question. And we're asking the same question, aren't we?
Yeah.
Suddenly there's a problem.
There's a problem with network. You cannot download. When you go to download, it's so slow. I mean, you're going to a cyber. The cyber, what's the capacity of the cyber? It's in a village somewhere. And then you're downloading papers for your entire school. And you're accessing the same server. Is the server adequate to actually be accessed at the same time? Because even the last year we had the same issues. Where because of challenges here and there, there's the issue of accessing the server.
Continues to be an issue, and it can't be. So it's not a matter of timing as to
been
when
overworked.
the exams were uploaded on the platform. It's not a matter of that. But then, whose responsibility is it to ensure that all schools who would be administering this exam then have the proper access within the properly stipulated time period to have this done? Whose responsibility is that? Then does it become the responsibility of the Ministry of Education?
Yes.
And Or are you saying that it becomes responsibility of the center where this exam is, the particular school? Should you then have all your ducks in the row? Or should the ones who are insisting this exam be taken make sure that each and every school has adequate internet access and all the materials that they need to print the exam?
You know, much as we may say very many things, and City, you're a chair of a school, I'll say schools are not autonomous in this country. Public schools.
No, they're not. They're under the ambit of the
are
Ministry of
government
Education.
Schools.
Yes.
So the government is in charge of each and every institution. If an institution does not have access to the internet, the government knows. The Ministry of Education knows. If, for example, do you have access to internet in your school?
Yes.
Adequate, proper, high-speed bandwidth, and it's always working.
What do you think it is? You think it's a business? It's a school. It's adequate. Why is guy asking me questions? What do you think we're running a business?
Surely. What's wrong?
I mean, how do some people wake up?
This is
a question you want to ask me this early in the morning.
This is how now you find the heads who are not able to download.
It's adequate.
Because when they were asked, they thought they are being attacked.
Me, I know when I'm being attacked.
When they asked
I also know when I'm being asked a question.
When they ask the question, is your internet fast enough? What do you think?
What do you want?
What do you think?
Am I running a business? It's a school.
See, the ministry, back to my point, the ministry knows the capacity of each school.
Yes.
The ministry knows the capacity of its servers.
It does.
So when you go to, these are 3 years sitting the assessment. We started with 1 grade sitting the assessment. We went to 2 grades sitting assessment.
Now
we have 3 grades sitting assessment. We have had the same issues in the previous assessments. What has the ministry done about it?
You know, Eric, there's a lot that I think we don't know about this. Because remember, there are people who are opposed to this to begin with. Then there are people who will always find something to complain about, no matter how good it is. The process of setting exams and ensuring they are done, man, it's laborious. But if there's one thing the government takes pains to ensure that everything is in place, or the ducks, it's this. If there was an uproar throughout the country, I'd say, here, the ministry
has bungled it.
I would say so. But this, Eric, even in this great city of ours, you are told things about bandwidth, you're told things about speed, you're told things about these things. You talk to people who understand this particular world of internet, and they'll tell you the people whose business it is to ensure you have those things don't really tell you the whole truth.
Yeah.
When you're told this is your bandwidth, you're probably sharing it with 4 other people. But you're told that is what is yours. It isn't yours. You have a certain service provider. Over time, when more and more people start using it, or you have these high-rise flats now next to the house you lived in, you suddenly find that same internet service that you've been using is suddenly much slower, and you keep asking them, why is this thing much slower? And sometimes it actually just goes off. And it's at certain hours. And if you time it, it's at the hours when other people now come home. I used to see the same thing with power. At 8 o'clock, power just suddenly goes off.
In the evening?
Yes.
Sudden surge in demand.
Yes, exactly. Which means somebody played around with all the equipment that is necessary.
What from a bigger pass?
Yes. Gone. So.
But you know, City.
Yes.
You see the way we run the KCPE, KCSE, where we print it in the UK, we bring it to a warehouse, we bring it to the schools, in a police guard and all. That is run seamlessly. Okay?
Military style, clockwork.
They arrive on time. The only areas where you have issues of arrival on time is areas with insecurity or bad weather. And all efforts are made. You even see those pictures and videos of people pushing buses, just making sure that the exams are getting to a place on time.
Yes, they even hire helicopters to take those things.
Yes. I think now, because the ministry is used to doing things from a central location and doing it, managing every bit of it, it's assumed that by asking, it's going to be able to run it the same way.
And it's not working.
And it's not working. Because you're talking about people saying, so I have very many students that are sitting this exam in my school. Now, downloading and getting a copy for each of these students is taking time.
Yeah.
Others who are saying the same. Internet is too slow in my school, so I have to go to the nearby cyber cafe. The nearest cyber cafe is some 20 kilometers away. The Ministry of Education has not factored in all these things. And I think that's where the challenges come in. And the questions go to the ministry.
You know,
what do you do in such instances? As a director of education in the county, you know the challenges in your area.
Yes.
Upload the issue, the needs here. Can you print them?
Can you just print them and then distribute?
And distribute. Because the headmaster is still going to download, print, distribute. Why not do it at the county headquarters and then distribute?
Knowing full well that there are these challenges of connectivity and etc. Because you can't tell me that as you see it reported is when the Ministry of Health officials or education officers, Ministry of Education officers then are looking and saying, oh, you mean that in this particular area there's a problem with connectivity and bandwidth, and no, they are aware. So if you're aware that these are the challenges and you know that these exams must be sat, then how about you deal with the issue once and for all and not have this problem whereby we're saying, well, you know what, we lost an entire day and we're going to have to extend this a couple of days because we spent a whole day printing exam papers. I mean, this is just...
It's just...
It's exhausting that we should still be at this place for some of these things because you are aware of the challenges beforehand. Okay, let's say you were not aware. Last year, this problem happened. This problem was there. You knew. Do you know that there was a significant change between what happened the previous year and to now? You know that probably the status quo has remained the same. So can you deal with it? Can we deal with some of these things so we don't have these issues over and over?
The Ministry of Education have the details of some of these problems.
Yep.
We will look for somebody from that ministry to come and give us a lowdown on this and explain to us what some of these things are.
What are these challenges? What are you going through? Support your workers, support your headmasters.
And if someone is beyond support, tell us also. You know, one of the things that one sometimes fails to appreciate is just the amount of responsibility that head teachers have. The thing is, head teachers are just there.
Head teachers are not just there.
No, they're not just
asking
there
for school fees.
Speaking from experience.
Yes, I am speaking.
I have
from
a lot
experience.
of work to do.
Oh my goodness, you do.
And you have to do it in a very short time.
No. The time is adequate now. It's going to test your competence as to whether. That's why people get promoted. They take you from some dinky school which has barely 50 students, take you to one which has around maybe 150. Then with time, maybe someone with a higher population, and so forth. Because it's not just management, but good management. Because these are budding lives. And then there's everything else that goes with their lives. The community, because all these schools are in some community or the other. Then there's the ministry, then there's the county. And these are things that you must manage. And then the really crucial are the funds. You have to be a very good manager of those funds, knowing how best to utilize these funds. And if you knew just how much money the government gives to their schools, part of the problems that you have it's not the delays and the stories we keep reading. It's the people who are given the task of managing them and how they manage them. Because for every example of a problem that arises, you'll be given a similar school in a similar area and you'll be told they didn't quite have those problems. Why? The difference is in who is managing those resources.
Right.
Yes.
As we go to the top of the hour, remember the Asset Recovery Agency? We hosted the director the other day. They are 111 million shillings richer, because they've been allowed to seize and preserve more than 111 million shillings seized from a Bahraini national who was arrested at JKIA while on transit to Dubai. Justice Esther Minor issued the order following an application by the ARA, claiming that they suspect Khalid Jamil Said is part of an international money laundering gang that siphons money from various countries and hides it in Bahrain. The judge further directed the KRA customs officer at the airport to surrender the seized funds to ARA for preservation for 90 days. Said was arrested at JKIA while attempting to leave the country on Friday while in possession of the money which ARA suspects he was doing on behalf of some individuals in the country. The agency, through their lawyer Jennifer Getiri, said Said arrived in the country on the 13th of January via Egypt Air flight and did not declare any cash upon entry into the country. He, however, was carrying heavy luggage, and on inspection by customs officials, it was discovered that he had the money in one of the suitcases. On inquiring from him as to the purpose of carrying the bulky cash, he didn't provide a reasonable explanation nor documentation in support of the possession of the cash. The ARA told the court that Said's response to the question he was asked raised suspicion that he is engaged in international money laundering because there are so many banks in the country which would have enabled him to safely transfer the cash across the countries if it was genuine cash. The lawyer said at the time Said was arrested at the JKIA, he did not avail proof of declaring that he was in possession of so much money from where he was coming from.
Poof.
111 million shillings.
In cash.
In cash.
Which currency? Shilling currency?
I think it's in dollar denominations. Foreign currency. And then he comes here with it. He's asked, so...
how far?
And he's... yeah.
It's mine.
Yeah, it's mine.
Ni yangu.
It's my money.
Ni yangu.
Yes.
Yashughulika na yako.
Yeah.
Sio maswali mingi.
No.
Pesa kuna pesa yako imepotea?
Did you see me carrying the bag? Yes.
Na ulisikia nilikuweko.
Did I arrive on the flight with this bag? See, it's mine. So what are the many questions? I will leave with it.
With it. Nia?
In fact, if you think it's a problem, I can go back.
I can just go back
to
where I've come from.
Yeah.
So all this while that you're asking me questions, where did
it's
I...
a problem
No.
Why aren't you asking me about the clothes?
Why didn't you ask me if I took them from somebody else? Because I'm carrying money.
Money is a problem. You can imagine, is it possible that there are some who actually just are able to do that?
To argue the way out of a situation and slither through. I'm sure there are many.
Maybe smaller amounts of money.
Yeah, I'm sure there are many people
Many
who will be able to
trips.
talk their way out of a sticky situation. I mean, it's the case.
This person didn't pave his way properly.
Indeed.
There's some of the more details to this story which have not actually been reported here, which were captured by the DCI person. Talked about the person trying to go to bank and trying to deposit some of this money in cash. And the banks are like, hey, boss.
Hold on a minute.
So he's asked those questions. He's like, come on, Mtakisi Kai. Goes to the next bank. Tries to deposit the money. What's your problem, you people Kenyans? He was leaving with his money.
Go with his money.
He was going with his money. I mean, you people have so many questions.
And do they indicate the nationality of this individual?
See, I read it.
Just read it again so that I ensure I don't...
You don't miss it.
I don't subscribe another country to this individual.
He's a Bahraini national.
They come from Bahrain.
Middle East, eh?
Yes. Bahrainians are from Bahrain.
Good.
Keep it here for more conversations. So our guest, the MP Jude Njomo, was caught up in that traffic. Unfortunately, he's gotten here a bit late, so we'll push the conversation into the 9 o'clock hour. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. In the next hour, let's look at the Global Hunger Index report for 2021. How are we faring in terms of food security in the country? We know that as we speak, that's a rhetorical question because there are people who are facing starvation in Kenya. Good morning. 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
The Spice FM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for a safe, comfortable, and affordable trip only with InDriver.
Examination
The
Council.
latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
They continue the competency The school-based assessment runs from January the 1st to February 1st, 2022, with schools accessing it from the NEC competency-based assessment portal. The assessment, which is said to account for 20% of their final scores at the end of grade 6, will be administered and marked by their teachers. Since the learners took practical and project-based tests between October and December of last year, these will be the theory portion of the assessment. The final test will be done between November 28th and December 1st, which will account for 40% and supervised by NEC. Now, the Kenya Trade Network Agency KenTrade has announced plans to plant 2,000 trees in the first half of 2022 in a bid to increase the forest cover in the country to over 10% tree cover from the current 7%. Speaking during a tree planting exercise at the Nairobi Primary School, KenTrade Chief Executive Officer Amos Wangora explained that the initiative highlights the agency's commitment towards sustainability. At 7% tree cover, Kenya is one of the least forested countries in Africa, equating to 67 trees per person compared to a global average that's around 420 trees for each person in a country. Now, 4 contenders for the Kisumu County Gubernatorial seat in the August general elections have vowed to front one candidate to face incumbent Professor Anyang' Nyong'o, former Governor Jack Ranguma, Kisumu Senator Fred Outa, former Kisumu Assembly Speaker Onyango Olo, and Chief Administrative Secretary for East Africa Community Ken Obura have resolved to name one candidate in a fortnight. They say they have agreed on a candidate among themselves. The team dismissed assertions that Nyong'o is the preferred candidate for ODM in the nominations. Now, ODM leader Raila Odinga heads to Nyandarua County as he continues to sell his presidential ambitions to Kenyans ahead of the August 9th general election. Odinga will be received by Nyandarua Governor Francis Kimemia, with whom he'll have a consultative meeting before holding campaign rallies in Old Kalau Town. These as the other ODM and pro-Azimio La Umoja supporters continue to sell their idea to their supporters. We will be on ground following these and other development and update you in our subsequent bulletins. The strike notice issued to the county government by health workers ends today. Health workers from various unions have threatened to down their tools if the Kwale County government fails to address delays in promotions and non-payment of their benefits. This comes at a time when health workers in Taita Taveta County have given a 3-day notice to the county government to address their concerns. Otherwise, they will similarly go on strike. Now, Kenya and Portugal have reaffirmed their commitment to strengthen collaboration in the health sector in the wake of sustained efforts by Kenya to advance the universal health coverage agenda. A meeting between Health CS Muthui Kagwe and the head of mission at the Portuguese embassy, Luisa Maria Fragoso, resolved to form a technical working team to explore areas of possible collaboration in the field of medicine. The Health CS said such ties will be central in sharing learned experiences as well as exposing health experts from 2 nations to each other's health system. Burkina Faso's military junta said it has restored the constitution a week after seizing power in poor Sahel country, an announcement that came as it held talks with the international negotiators who praised its openness to their proposal. The discussions in the Burkina capital Ouagadougou were very frank, according to the West African delegation leader Charlie Ayoko Bochwe, the foreign minister of Ghana. The Economic Community of West African States ECOWAS delegates were joined in the talks by the UN Special Representative for West African and the Sahel UNOWAS, Mohamed Saleh Anadif, who also described a very frank exchange. The talks came shortly after the African Union suspended Burkina for the January 24th takeover. ECOWAS has suspended Burkina Faso from its ranks and warned of possible sanctions pending the outcome of the talks with the junta. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Still have your Mombasa this morning, and we're going into the city centre. A lot of folks trying to use that ICD route. Don't forget, there's a trailer that has stalled there, and that's what's causing all of that traffic this morning. And it's going to take a while to get out of that. Okay, just looking at the entire city, there seems to be traffic everywhere you look today. As they say, Mombasa Road gets a headache, and the rest of the city seems to also suffer from the same. All right. Raila Odinga Way, Gong Road, that whole area, mishmash of traffic, bumper to bumper situations trying to get out of the city into Westlands. We're coming out from the Thika Superhighway and quite a lot of traffic here as well. Going all the way to the Outer Ring Junction and also looking at traffic on Kiambu Road this morning. Limuru Road is an absolute mess. Industrial area is very, very slow. We are in traffic hour this Tuesday morning. Let's see what it looks like in a short while. Any incidents or accidents, let us know. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room,
very good morning
the only way to start your day.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is The Situation Room, broadcasting on Spice FM and also streaming on www.spicefm.co.ke. We're live streaming the show on YouTube, Spice FM KE, as well as to Facebook, Spice FM KE. And for the next 1 hour, we are live on KTN Home. It's the first day of February 2022. Oh, which reminds me, going by his own words and his own promise, in 6 weeks' time, President Uhuru Kenyatta will drive on this expressway.
And when was this the statement made?
In December, he said March.
Oh, this expressway.
This one of ours.
Well, even now he can drive. Doesn't have to wait for those 6 weeks to lapse. No, that can happen even now. I see vehicles that I'm certain belong to those who are actually who have the responsibility of ensuring that the works are completed, so he can drive.
Okay, so let me irritate the pearl just a little bit. What he meant is that the expressway then would be completed
in March. It won't. It won't be.
No,
it won't be completed
in 6 weeks' time. So let's make it. What do you want to make it? 9 weeks?
Why?
So that we go to the end of March.
I mean, why is it that you're stuck on the 8 weeks? Why don't you give it a tag of months? Then I think you will be able to understand what's happening.
Okay,
by the end of next month.
This particular highway will not be complete by the end of March.
In fact, the president said he'll drive from Machakos Junction all the way to Maimahiu Junction. All those constructions will be completed.
He can, even now he can drive. But he has to break his journey.
Somewhere
he'll have to
diversion,
stop.
here, there.
Board an earth mover, get to one stage, board a lorry, go to another. Then, I mean, this highway will not. How many deadlines have we been given with regards to this particular highway? You tell me, how many?
So are you being realistic or are you being just Debbie Downer?
No, I am being realistic because I traverse this road daily. Every single day. And I've been doing this since they started putting it up.
The president should talk to you. Because the people he's talking
to.
The
president goes by what he is told. And those people are lying to him. This particular highway will not be complete at the end of March. He's being lied to.
Okay. Why don't you give us the day's proverb?
Yes. Kupotea njia ndio kujua.
So when he gets on it,
then he will know.
That's how he'll know the road.
Yes. And if he really wants to understand it, don't wait for the 6 weeks. Start now. The way he likes surprising people, let him surprise himself by just saying, okay, you've told me, and each week we are supposed to see this sort of progress. Let him come and traverse this highway and let him see for himself. And let him estimate as a layperson whether 6 weeks will be enough to actually complete
this road.
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about food security. And the Global Hunger Index that was released this year for the 2021 year. And we have two guests in the studio joining us this morning. One of them is Stella Kimani. She's a nutrition coordinator at Welthungerhilfe. She'll tell us what that is. And the second guest is Beldina Tieno, Senior Manager, Governance and Advocacy at Concern Worldwide. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for joining us and welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Those are the hot seats that you're occupying. Let's talk about food security and the state of food security in the world, and then we come back into Kenya. But let's first understand your organizations. Stella,
Yes.
Welthungerhilfe.
Right.
Who are you?
So, Welthungerhilfe, or WHH, is a German international organization, and we have programs across over 60 countries in the world, and Kenya is one of them. And in Kenya, we cover at least 12 counties, and our programming range from sustainable food and nutrition security to improving food systems to providing sustainable water, sanitation and health and hygiene, humanitarian aid, development, in education as well, supporting pastoral communities to be resilient, among many other programs. So we work either directly implementing as Welthungerhilfe, or we work through different national, local partners who implement our projects as well.
In how many parts of the world are you located?
So we're in 64 countries and still spreading our wings. So anywhere that there's a hunger problem, you will find Welthungerhilfe, because our goal and our vision is a world without hunger. So where there's hunger, then we will be there to work towards making sure that nobody's hungry. Yes.
The people who came up with the concept, the idea, and eventually this particular organization, what is it that spurred them to start it? What had they seen? What had they experienced?
Basically, Welthungerhilfe came about as the international. There was an international convention, and there was, a way forward that nobody should really be struggling with hunger, because hunger is the biggest solvable problem in the world. There are tangible solutions that we can implement to sort the hunger problem, and German was formed, just like we have other international UN bodies. So Welthungerhilfe is the German, version of organizations like FAO.
How old is it?
So in Kenya, we've been around since the 1970s. However, when we came into Kenya, we were implementing through national partners. In fact, it's just in the recent years after our registration in Kenya in the 1990s that we started to implement some of the projects as Welthungerhilfe. However, throughout the world, in all the countries that we're in, we make use of the national organizations because they're the ones who know the national problems, and we believe in having local solutions.
I'm going to ask you an unfair question.
Right.
Okay. So I take it that in Germany, there is no hunger. There are no places where people go hungry.
Oh, there's hunger around the world. Everywhere, from the most developed countries to the least, if you look at the development index. However, some countries have had a bit of an unfair share of this problem, and it's because of a myriad, so many different issues that could cause that. But for sure, there are problems everywhere, There is. So hunger is everywhere. And sometimes, the different types of hunger, even us in this room, there's hunger that you see. And a lot of times when people hear about hunger, they think of a thin, malnourished child or adult. But there is hidden hunger, which is micronutrient deficiency. Yeah, that is the vitamins and the minerals. And those ones you mostly know through disease. So that's why it's called hidden hunger. And that is everywhere around the world, not just Africa or third world countries.
Okay.
Yes.
Building.
Yes.
Tell us about Concern Worldwide.
Concern Worldwide is an Irish INGO,
that was formed in the 1968. So we are about 60 years old globally. And across the world, we work in over 24 countries, and Kenya is one of them. In Kenya, Concern has been present since 2002. Started off with programs in the urban informal settlements, specifically looking at education, and then expanded to Nyanza. And then around 2008, we began working in the ASAL regions. So our main programs are education. We have livelihoods, health and nutrition, and a governance component where we work with the communities to empower them on their rights and enable them to participate in development issues concerning them. And we've been working very closely with the WHH to produce this report for the last 16 years. And globally, Concern is known for its nutrition-specific interventions. And also we promote resilience through our livelihoods programming. In Kenya specifically, we've been working with the pastoralists in the northern ASAL areas, and in the urban informal settlements also we've been working with the county government to come up with a system to detect food crisis within the urban informal settlements. In Kenya, we work through the government, that is the Ministry of Health. We work with the Ministry of Agriculture, that is at the national and at the county level. And then from our education program, we just work with the schools as well as the Ministry of Education. We also have local partners that we've worked with before on development, and also right now in humanitarian crises such as the current ongoing drought, we also partner with local NGOs. Yeah.
So we're going to discuss the Global Hunger Index. There's so many indices in the world. Global Development Index and other. Why the Global Hunger Index, and what does it show, Stella?
So as I mentioned, hunger is the biggest solvable problem. And for you to be able to solve a problem, you need to, try to figure out through research the magnitude of the problem itself and who is suffering from the problem. And out of, for the GHI for Global Hunger Index for 2021, 116 countries were listed and assessed. And the reason why that is very important is because it's looking at the countries that suffer the most from hunger around the world and analyzing different parameters of malnutrition and agriculture, food systems, but mostly global acute malnutrition, which is basically moderate and severe malnutrition, to see how countries are faring and what the progress is. So just to give a snapshot, like in 2019, Kenya was position 86 out of 116. And in 2021, Kenya was position 87. So there's progress, but in the opposite direction, not in the direction we want to be progressing towards. You want to be not even in the list of problems that have hunger, especially if you're talking about Kenya, and this is 69 years post-independence. So it's important to have research because that also helps us to advocate and push for policies and try to assess deeper what is the problem. So data is very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just taking a snapshot then of this survey and just looking globally first before we're even able to come and bring things home. If I'm looking at Sub-Saharan Africa, from what you've said, from what this report is saying, tends to be in the serious range, whereby we have serious issues of hunger, alarming issues of hunger in Central Africa, and then extremely alarming issues in some parts of East Africa. What are the indicators then now you use to then determine that there are hunger issues in particular countries?
So when it comes to hunger and malnutrition, the result of hunger, is whether it's acute or prolonged, which is chronic hunger, is malnutrition. And the index uses malnutrition values to assess how countries are faring and among other parameters. So the list will only show like how we are doing in terms of, different countries are doing in terms of global acute malnutrition. However, we go deeper. If you look at the report, you'll see that we also look at other drivers of these issues. For instance, for Kenya, we've had different threats to food and nutrition security, from drought to locusts to the COVID-19 pandemic, to livestock diseases, so to political problems, security issues for some of the countries you're seeing as serious.
Yeah.
You'll notice some of them also have serious insecurity problems, to, cattle rustling. So there are many drivers and root causes of malnutrition, but the end result of it, what they manifest as, is malnutrition, and malnutrition then will affect different sectors across the board,
So are
from
we
health
saying-
to.
So sorry, Stella. So are we saying
Yes.
that there are many reasons why
Yes.
an individual then who makes up a larger unit would be malnourished?
Absolutely.
And so we're saying we're looking at insecurity, instability in terms of political government and things like that.
Yes.
Inability to plant and grow. All of those things then contribute to this malnutrition, but malnutrition is the thing that you look at.
Absolutely, because when you look at what causes malnutrition at the top, it's manifested as either poor health or somebody who is stunted, which means too short for their age. But when you go a layer deeper, looking at the UNICEF framework for malnutrition, a layer deeper than that, you'll find that you'll ask yourself, why is this person hungry? Why are they malnourished? And then you find out that it's either they don't have adequate food in the household, and again, that has its causes. Either they're not producing enough or they cannot access it from the market because of socioeconomic problems.
True.
And if they're not getting enough, the other reason for malnutrition also is disease. Then you ask yourself, if the cause is the person or the household does not have enough food, what's the reason? They may not have access to land. They may not have access to water for irrigation or for farming. Maybe they are depending on rain-fed agriculture. And if they are in arid and semi-arid lands, obviously our rain has not been performing well at all. Then you go a layer deeper and ask yourself, if that is the underlying problem, what is the root cause of it?
And this is a constant state of affairs. So it has to be constant.
Yes.
And then for you to be able to come up with these numbers, it has to
Absolutely.
be. And what time are we looking at here? Are we saying that for a year?
Yeah.
Or are we saying for over 2 years, if a group of people or an individual has remained in this state, then we can then now use that as indicators for general information or data?
So apart from, in addition to what you've just mentioned, we also look at country-specific data. For instance, we look at demographic and health surveys. Unfortunately, Kenya, I think the last one we did was 2014, and the next one was supposed to be done 5 years later, but because of, I guess, a lot of issues, and again, the pandemic hit, then it was not done in 2021 when it was scheduled. And then we also look at other data from international organizations, from FAO to UNICEF to WHO. So there are different organizations also you look at in terms of data, but the most reliable data you can ever find is country-specific data, because the Kenya Demographic Health Survey is not something that we can say, oh, this was done by an international organization. They may have a different agenda in this, Those are purely conducted by the different countries. So the main set of data that is normally analyzed in the Global Hunger Index is actually the demographic and health surveys of the different countries. And unfortunately, some of them don't have clear data. Like for Kenya, we are looking, we're talking about 2014. So we had to rely more on other organizations' data. So that is one of the challenges also we are seeing in Kenya. And when you start now breaking down even to counties, you'll find that some counties hardly have any data on hunger. Yet, hunger is nutrition is the main foundation of a person's living,
I'm looking at something that you've indicated here, data underlying the calculation of the Global Hunger Index scores.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I'm looking at undernourishment.
Yes.
Then there's stunting.
Yes.
Then there's wasting.
Yes.
Then there's under 5 mortality.
Yes.
Now, from what I've read, it means that you aggregate this. Before you score, you look at all these indicators, and this is what provides you with an idea of where this particular country stands with regards to hunger.
Absolutely. Yes, that's correct.
I've got that one right?
Yes.
You too. I got that
You got it
right.
right.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah,
Now
that-
ask a
that's
question.
correct. That's accurate.
After shining, now ask a question.
You've both mentioned how you work with existing government institutions and other players in this particular field. What I'd like you to do for us, is walk us through this working with. What do you actually do? And when you do it, what results are you hoping to get? And then, how often do you actually get the results that you're hoping for? And if you don't, what hinders you from getting them? Because when you say we are supported, that one, broad word, working with again, broad word.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because for you to have existed this long and as for concern, there are things that you do. And you've been doing them for a long time.
Right.
And the people you work with know what you do. They understand. They've seen the benefits. I don't. Many other people don't. So just, you can walk us through, then you can also walk us through building,
Yes.
through how it is you go through these processes.
Absolutely. So we have different programs and focus areas when it comes to sustainable food and nutrition security. And one of the ways that we work is, first of all, when an organization, like when we have funding, the first step is to figure out whether we are self-implementing the project. For instance, if it's something to do with agriculture, yeah, or we'll have a local partner implement the project. But even before that, at project conception stage, we work with communities, first of all, to analyze what is the problem within a certain community. Because, you can't just bring desk, solutions to a community problem. So we work with communities to figure out what the issues are, and we also discuss solutions with them. And that is when the money comes in for how to implement those different programs. And the government, basically non-government organizations are supposed to complement what government is currently doing. So we are informed by government strategies. For instance, for nutrition, we have the agri-nutrition strategy, we have the food and nutrition security policy implementation framework, which is the implementation framework is from 2017 to 2022. So we need to be revising that already. And we have different other strategic documents that we work with when we are implementing different activities. And the different activities are geared towards providing specific solutions that are in the different communities, because again, each community has its own unique set of problems. And again, the solutions are also unique to those different communities, although across the board you'll see a lot of similarities. Other than that, now that's from a needs-based approach, which is where you identify a need, you look at what government has planned in terms of fulfilling those needs for its people, and then we complement that. But there's another approach we use that we've realized is maybe more sustainable than a needs-based approach. Because in a needs-based approach, you're more of a humanitarian, you're seeing a need and you're trying to fulfill the need. But it's not always sustainable. So Veltunga Hilfe we have now started implementing rights-based approaches. So we look at the Constitution of Kenya, we look at the different policy documents and the legal framework. For instance, for hunger, if you look at the Constitution of Kenya, Article 43(1)(c) indicates that every person has the right to be free from hunger and to food of adequate quality and safety. And again, it says the same in Article 53(1)(c) for children, where they are entitled, or just for being human, they are entitled to the right to adequate nutrition. So then you ask yourself, if we have a legal framework in the Constitution for fulfilling the right to food, why is it then that Kenyans are still hungry? Is it that we are not even implementing our own constitution? Is it that we have a resource problem, or what is the problem? And then we go to the duty bearers. Now, the duty bearers is everybody who has the duty to fulfill or has a duty towards implementing of these policies. And we talk to them and
with one of our programs running right now called Strengthening Rural Governance for the Right to Food, we've realized that some of the duty bearers don't even know the legal framework for the right to food. And we have to start by sensitizing them and also making them know that they are both duty bearers and rights holders to be able to fulfill their rights and that of other people. Then we talk to the rights holders, and that is you and I, who we call the mwananchi. And we educate them also on why they cannot treat food as aid and why food is not just some help you get from your duty bearer, your politician. It's a right that is enshrined in the Constitution. So it has to be something that you're not begging for, something that you're not requesting for. So these are some of the approaches that we are working on, and it includes a lot of advocacy from the government, because again, there's always the conversation around the resources are not enough. Resources will never be adequate, population keeps increasing and a lot of other factors and a lot of shocks, but it's about working together with government and other stakeholders to complement each other to make things work.
Beldin, you'll tell us about how then you also work in partnership with the other organizations as concerned worldwide after we take this short break at 29 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on KTN Home, SpiceFM and online. We have in the studio with us Stella Kimani, a nutrition coordinator with Welthungerhilfe, and Senior Manager, Governance and Advocacy at Concern Worldwide, Beldin Atieno. We are discussing the Global Hunger Index 2021. Back shortly.
Spice FM, Malindi. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2000-2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country after the coup attempt of 1982.
There's no Kikuyu pothole, no lack of water, or Kamba, lack of traffic. There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans, you'll be in for a rude shock.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Coming out through those clouds in Nairobi, mostly cloudy for most of the day though. Highs of 25 and lows of 15. Partly sunny at 17 in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 26 and lows of 15. 26 will be the high in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 16. 15 and mostly cloudy in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 14. It's sunny in Mombasa at 26. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 25, whereas in Malindi, it's partly sunny at 26, highs of 31 today. Kisumu is mostly cloudy at 20, highs of 28 and lows of 19, while Kakamega is cloudy at 21, highs of 28 and lows of 16. In Kampala, it's cloudy at 21, highs of 27 today, while in Dar es Salaam, we'll see highs of 31 and lows of 25 through sunny conditions. It's a hazy Lagos morning at 22, we'll see highs of 33, while in Johannesburg, it's mostly cloudy at 16, highs of 25. We'll round things off in Kinshasa. For now, it's mostly cloudy at 23, highs of 33, back down to lows of 23.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever.
And it does continue on Mombasa Road, so we're seeing a lot of traffic tail back to the Way Bridge today, past Sabaki, and then out towards Imaradaima. It's slowly moving. The ICD route is not going to offer you too much reprieve today because of that traffic that's already there. The Southern Bypass, however, looks pretty good. Outer Ring also clogged up. A lot of action here. Traffic is thumping in other parts of the city. We're looking at Langata Road, Raila Odinga Way, out towards Ngong Road, and then through towards Westlands. It doesn't look pretty right now, so it looks like it's going to take us some time in traffic hour to today. Thika Superhighway, we're going towards the junction of Outer Ring, and that's snaking along very slowly as it is on Kiambu Road today. Absolute glorious mess. Limuru Road also bumper to bumper trying to get into the city. It's that Tuesday. It's manic. Let's keep an eye on things today as we go through. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
So 25 minutes to 9, Kenya's biggest conversation. It continues. We are talking about the 2021 Global Hunger Index with Beldin Atieno from Concern Worldwide and Stella Kimani from Welthungerhilfe. Beldin, tell us about the way that you work with the other organizations and also respond to this particular issue that has been highlighted in the 2021 Global Hunger Index, which is the threat of the 3 Cs: conflict, climate change, COVID-19, and how that impacted food security and the issue of hunger globally, especially looking at Kenya.
Okay. Thanks so much. So for Concern Worldwide, when we begin or enter into a country, we begin with a contextual analysis, just looking at what is the prevailing situation at the community level as well as on the government systems. So that's the first step that we take. And then from there on, we have been implementing a human rights-based approach where we work both with government and with communities. For government, we support government systems. And what this means is that we are guided by the national policies and strategies. And at county level, we also look at what is the county aiming to achieve, especially from their county integrated development plans. And narrowing down specifically to, let's say, for example, the health and nutrition sector or the livestock sector, we begin with a conversation, a self-assessment with the health and nutrition workers in the health department. And globally, there is an approach called health system strengthening. So we look at what are the governance issues within the health system, what are the supply and commodity issues, logistics, do the health workers have enough capacity in terms of training, or do they have enough staff to serve the population that we are targeting. So we start with a gap analysis, which is done jointly with the health workers. And once the gaps have been identified, then we come up with an action plan or a work plan to achieve or to make this improvements within the system that can help us to get quality services delivered to the target population. So, for example, with the health and nutrition programs, we have worked with the county governments, various county governments, Marsabit, Turkana, Tana River, Nairobi. We've supported them to develop their county nutrition action plans that are based on the national nutrition action plan that we have. So we've supported policy development and also training for health workers. So, for example, there are approaches such as infant and young child feeding. Health workers receive training and they're therefore able to support communities to be able to have practices such as breastfeeding, which contributes a lot to the nutrition of children that are between 0 to 24 months. And then on the community side, we use an approach that we call community conversations approach. Again, we go in not as the expert, but as someone who is seeking to work together with the community to achieve their development concerns. So what we do is we have conversations, and we are keeping in mind that we are working with communities that have high levels of illiteracy. So we have very simple tools that include storytelling, strategic questioning, and we come up with the barriers.
Which are these communities that have high levels of illiteracy?
In Marsabit County, for instance, we have pastoralists where at least 94% of the adult population is illiterate. So those are some of the communities that we are targeting. And we engage in conversations using very simple tools, trying to understand what are the barriers that they are facing in terms of access to services. So, for example, we have barriers such as we have a few number of health facilities, vast geographical distances where a mother has to walk several kilometers to be able to access health services. So those are some of the challenges that we are able to unpack. We also have gender dynamics that also affect these communities and even us as well, because you find in most families, women eat last, or girls eat after the men and the boys. So there's also issues around how food is shared within a household. And you can imagine in these ASAL areas where there's minimal amount of food that is available, and women and children probably are the last to eat. So those are some of the issues that we discuss, and then come up with plans of how we can change the behaviors and food taboos. Also, we have things like food taboos where you'll find women are not supposed to eat certain parts of chicken or certain types of meat or even eggs. So those also contribute to the issue around malnutrition.
So with all these many organizations such as yourselves working in this sector, looking at food security, the government with an entire ministry and very many state departments and very many organizations and supported programs working on food security, we still find ourselves in a position of food insecurity in the country. And despite of the very many strategies, in fact, even the index itself highlights some of those strategies that are in place. When you talk about the 3 Cs, conflict is not new. Conflict has been there in the country for many years, and those communities that you're talking about are affected by conflict. Climate change has been there for a while. COVID is the one that you can say, okay, so this was a new thing, but those other two, there are strategies for dealing with conflict. The Kenya Climate Smart Agriculture Strategy, rolled out by the government. We have the new one that the Ministry of Agriculture was just rolling out 2 years ago, the Agricultural Sector Transformational and Growth Strategy, and very many other strategies in place. And then your work on the ground. Why is it that we still find ourselves food insecure in Kenya, Stella?
Well, it's one thing to have policies, and it's another to implement them and make sure that there are adequate resources to implement those policies, and also have a workable approach to implement them. Looking at the 3 Cs that you mentioned and what I'd mentioned earlier about the root causes of hunger, basically, the root causes of hunger and the UNICEF conceptual framework of malnutrition is something that has been there for years. And what you're mentioning as the 3 Cs are just a tip of the icebergs. There are so many other drivers of hunger and malnutrition. And COVID-19 is not the only pandemic we've dealt with. You know, there have been other serious diseases and issues affecting both humans and livestock. Yes, yet we still find ourselves here. And as I mentioned from our approach as Veltunga Hilfe, part of it has been the approach. One, when organization takes only a needs-based approach to solving a problem like hunger that affects literally each and every one of us, it means that I'm looking at the problem you have, and if your problem is food, I want to bring you food. But how do I make sure that you are resilient enough and I have made your situation sustainable enough such that you're not dependent on me, either as government or an organization, to continue trying to solve that problem for you. And that means that we need to tweak our strategies and our implementation or our way of doing things to make communities more resilient and more sustainable. And how do we do this? Looking at agriculture. For years, we've been looking at agriculture from a linear approach, which means we are looking at value chains. So if somebody is producing maize, which is what we are always talking about in this country, you're thinking about the farmer, the land they have, the inputs, but then you're not thinking about what is the final product or the value of this product and where it will end up from farm to fork. And that is what we call a systemic approach. So you're looking at a food system which is affected by many other systems that are contained in different other sectors, as opposed to looking at a maize smallholder farmer as just somebody who needs to be given farm subsidies. It's important. But again, how is the state of the land they are farming on? What kind of inputs are they using? Are they causing sickness? You know, is the food going to be safe for people to eat? Are the farming activities they are engaged in sustainable, or is it what again is still driving the global climate change problem? So are we trying to solve a problem by digging deeper into another problem? Yes.
Given what you do,
Absolutely, yes.
what would success look like?
Looking at food systems.
When you finished all your work and looked at the food systems,
Yes.
what do you expect to see? A layman who doesn't even understand the term food index and
Yes.
food systems
Yes.
looks at it and says, aha,
Yes.
what would it look like?
Now, what it would look like will come from understanding what we need to do to get there. Now, it's important for us to understand the food as a system because most of our farmers are smallholder farmers. And they have very small plots of land. How do we make it more productive, right? Because the end result is to make sure that everybody, and this is what it should look like, where every person is not suffering from hunger. So they have accessible food, and the food is safe. The food is sustainable, meaning every household and every person can access food at all times. And also, if they cannot farm the food, for instance, the people in Nairobi, they are able to access it because they have economic power to be able to buy the food. But for you to buy the food, it has to be available in the market, no?
Yep.
And for it to be available in the market, you have to figure out how it's getting from the smallholder farmer. And that means we have to look at other systems from infrastructure, our trading systems. Are we just dealing with middlemen who are making our farmers poorer? That is why I'm saying looking at systems as opposed to just looking at a farmer as a person who is just produces food makes more sense because it will bring more value to the farmer and different households. They are going to get economic power because they're earning more money from their farming activities, and the economic triple effect of that goes beyond that small household and bursts into the entire economy because most of our farmers are smallholder and most are also women. So again, we have to look even into culture issues. And again, about the 3 C's, when you're looking at things around climate change, we have a lot of early warning systems. Like right now we have drought. Yeah. We had early warning systems, but somehow every year, if it's not drought, it's flood. If it's not flood, it's a livestock outbreak of disease. Yet we have different organizations, like we have the Global Hunger Index. We have different other early warning systems. We have drought rapid response systems. But what is the problem? Because clearly the policies are there. But are we making sure that resources are available? Mainly from the government, because also we can't leave the issue of hunger to developmental organizations only and say that, okay, here are the policy documents. We have X number of non-governmental organizations and private organizations, and now we can implement this. It's about time we held government and the political elite in this country into account about their own policies, about their own, like the Big Four agenda, which is now...
But
so
long as... No, let me not ask that question. What does success look like?
So what success looks like for us, especially from a policy advocacy point of view, is having political goodwill and commitment towards food and nutrition security. In the context where we work in, for example, in the ASALs, 80% of the residents of those areas depend on pastoralism. But if you look at the investment by the government in terms of livestock sector, it's very minimal. And if you look at agriculture sector as a whole, I think Kenya is very far from meeting the 10% requirement by the Maputo Declaration. So I think adequate investment of resources towards supporting farmers will be one of the key indicators of success. Another key indicator of success will be having women and youth also being involved in production and also ensuring that they have equal access to the market because we have a youthful population. I think over 75% of the population in Kenya is youth. And if we don't engage them and we leave the agriculture to the older population, then what is it that we'll be looking at? So I think involvement of all actors in equitably in food systems, in production, and also in ensuring that they have access to income opportunities would be one of the indicators of success.
There are many things.
Yes.
You talk about agriculture, if we're talking about, small scale small to medium scale farming, but still looking at the fact that a lot is then exported and then brought back into the country. And I really do believe and agree that in order to spur on an economy, then you also need to be producing. Right? So then it would affect some of these things that we are looking at now. And I think that's one of the things that you talk about. So, and then to have these interlocking systems working together, you kill so many birds then with one stone. If again, we're coming back to this malnutrition that we are talking about, there's so many factors then that affect it. Where is government in these conversations that you're having, in these activities that you're now performing? What's the government speak about its role and its responsibility in terms of things like now spurring on an economy when it comes to manufacturing and things like that? Where is the participation? Where have we reached?
I think we are just coming from a year of nutrition, which was 2021, where the government has made various international commitments during the United Nations Food Systems Summit that was in September last year, and we also had the Nutrition for Growth Summit that was in December, and the government reiterated that they are focused on 100% food security. In terms of the food systems, they also added additional commitments to work with the youth. They added commitments to address climate change. So I think the government has put in place commitments, and what we now need to see is action to translate these commitments into reality, so that the people on the ground can be able to feel the impact of these decisions. The other action that we'd like to see from government is investment again, both in the health and nutrition sector as well as in the agriculture sector. We really need to see this money trickling down to the counties. If you look at, since 2017, we've had instances where there's delayed cash flow from the national government to the county government, yet the county government is the one that is at the front line dealing with these issues on a day-to-day basis. And if you look at the social economic indicators such as health, you will see a decline in public service delivery whenever there's this delayed cash flows. So I think we need more coordinated approach between national and county government to see the final outcomes of the policies that have been passed.
Who's to carry that? Who's to bear these cards? All those things that you've said, the civil society organizations working in this space know. Many of you are in this space.
Yes.
The government knows. The policymakers, the people who are experts in the Ministry of Agriculture and the others, they know. The people at the National Treasury and Planning know. But they're not being done. So who's supposed to carry the whip and make sure that these things are done?
So one of the things we are working on in one of our projects for strengthening rural governance for the right to food, we have formed two coalitions. There's one national coalition on the right to food, which we are still working on to make sure that the media is also part of it. And we are forming different grassroots organizations. And the reason why we are doing this is because we want to strengthen advocacy and activism towards taking hunger and food issues as a right, and stop having this stretched out hand of that malnourished child who looks poor and. So we are working between 2022 and 23 on a bill. We want to table a bill in Parliament that is going to give a legal framework for the implementation of Article 43(1)(c) of the Kenya Constitution on the right to food. Because what happened is, after that article was included in the Constitution, then a policy, the Food and Nutrition Security Policy, was developed. But a step was skipped, where an Act of Parliament needed to provide the basis to be able to operationalize that article in the Constitution. And that is what we've realized now we need to go back to, even as we work towards revising the 2017-2022 Food and Nutrition Security Implementation Framework. We need to also make sure that all these things Beldin and I are mentioning around food systems, around making sure that smallholder farmers are given food sovereignty and there's seed sovereignty, and we're not just using these seeds that are not reusable because now you are tied to a company because you can only buy a one-use type of seed because it's not the kind of seeds we've been dealing with before. So looking at seed sovereignty, looking at farmer sovereignty, where farmers are not on the menu, they are on the table making decisions, and we make sure that farmers are the people who are benefiting from our food systems,
Like
you
that.
know.
Farmers are not on the menu.
Yes, they should be on the decision table, and they should be the ones, getting the economic benefit of their hard work in their farms. And women and youth, making sure that we make agriculture attractive to the youth. So all this stuff, all these issues we want to include in a bill to Parliament, and not make it just another policy that will be on the shelf, because Kenya has so many nice, great policies that everybody implements apart from us. So we need to make sure that we give a legal framework that will hold the government accountable for the hunger problem. We cannot be speaking 69 years post-independence about people still, the issues Muze talked about. Ujinga, nja, and what was the third one? There are the three.
Education,
there was education, there was health, and there was hunger. 69 years post-independence, we have the same problems, only that they have kind of graduated with a different face. So we need to make sure that we are holding the government accountable, and the best way to do that is, one, to have an act of parliament, but in that act, make sure that also county governments, because agriculture is devolved, we need to make sure that also county governments are being held accountable, one, for domesticating national policies and contextualizing them to the problems that they actually have in their counties, but further to that, allocating resources, making sure that the rights holders, who are the citizens, participate in different processes when it comes to agriculture and hunger issues, and also that we are doing a social audit and public audit process, which we've done so far in our project, to see where are these resources going. Even if it's 1 million, where did it go?
How do you bring in the right holder to the front of this conversation?
Through a lot of sensitization. First of all, they need to know their rights, that they are not begging for food. It's their right as a citizen of Kenya. And once they know their rights, for instance, there are different group of people who have different rights when it comes to hunger, from social safety nets for the elderly to cash transfers for orphans and vulnerable children. Are they getting this? Because this is money that is disbursed by the government every year. Is it getting to the people who it's supposed to get to? And if it's not, capacity build these people to fight for their own rights and demand better. We are now in an electioneering year. These people must make sure that the person they vote for is somebody who is not pro-hunger, because a hungry person is an easy-to-govern person, because they're easy to control. So we must make sure that people know that my vote is the ticket towards my lack of hunger. So once people as rights holders, and we stop looking at them as beneficiaries or people who just benefit, because if you call somebody a beneficiary, it means they're benefiting from something. But if you call them rights holders, it means they're citizens of this country.
On something they can demand.
There's something they can demand.
Right.
And that's the direction we need to go.
As we conclude the conversation, Beldine, tell us about, what is it that you want, what a message that you'd like to go out to our audience this morning? When you talk about the Global Hunger Index and the work that you've been doing, and what Stella has just talked about, all of us being sensitized in this election year.
What I would like to say is that if you look at the report, this report doesn't even include the impact of the COVID-19. So it means things could be much worse than what we are seeing from the report. And it's not only in Kenya, the trend is globally. We've been making reverses to the gains that we have made. And I think for us as citizens, we need to now start making the connection between our vote and the issues that we see within our homes. So we need to rise up, we need to take action, we need to make decisions that are for our betterment as a population. And for our political leaders, I think we need them now to really stand up and fight for us as citizens, because issues of conflict, hunger will continue coming, but we need systems that are able to prepare early for early action even before
and to
the
address the
situation
issues.
comes. Yeah.
Beldin Atieno, thank you very much for joining us. Beldin is Senior Manager for Governance and Advocacy at Concern Worldwide. She was accompanied by Stella Kimani, Nutrition Coordinator at Welthunger Hilfe. We've been talking about the Global Hunger Index and looking at our food systems in Kenya and the situation that we are in when it comes to food security or food insecurity. Keeping right here for more conversations. The conversation that we'd have had at 7 with the Honorable Jude Njomo is coming up at 9. Good morning. It's 9 a.m.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Property of unknown value has been destroyed by fire that engulfed Sunbeam Commercial Building in the CBD, Nairobi. Firefighters from the Nairobi County Government and first responders from St. John's Ambulance are on site. Cause of the fire is unknown, but we will update you on this developing story in a subsequent news bulletin. Now, Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission commenced enhanced continuous voter registration exercise in United Arab Emirates and Canada. In UAE, the exercise is taking place at the Kenya Embassy in Abu Dhabi and Kenya Consulate in Dubai. In Canada, the exercise kicks off at the High Commission in Ottawa, the Kenya Honorary Consulate in Toronto and Kenya Honorary Consulate in Vancouver, according to a statement by IEBC. This has been made possible following the easing of COVID-19 restrictions in the United Arab Emirates and Canada. The Commission will extend registration in Canada and UAE by the number of days lost to ensure Kenyans residing in the two countries are accorded 15 days to register as voters. The Ministry of Health has inked a deal with private hospitals that will see the settlement between them and the National Health Insurance Fund temporarily resolved. According to a statement by NHIF, the Health Cabinet Secretary Muthui, NHIF Chief Executive Officer Peter Kamunyo and various private hospitals held a consultative meeting to deliberate on the directive issued last week. In the deal, private hospitals resolved to continue allowing NHIF card holders to access medical services in their facilities until June 30th. The strike notice issued to the Kwale County government by health workers ends today. Health workers from various unions have threatened to down their tools if the Kwale County government fails to address delays in promotions and non-payment of their benefits. This comes at a time when the health workers in Taita Taveta County have given a 3-day notice to the county government to address their concerns, otherwise they will similarly go on strike. The Kenya National Examination Council has administered school-based assessment across the country to grade 4 learners, marking a major milestone in the continuity of the competency-based curriculum. The school-based assessment runs from January 31st to February 4th, 2022, with schools accessing it from the NEC competency-based assessment portal. The assessment, which is set to account for 20% of the final scores at the end of grade 6, will be administered and marked by their teachers. Since the learners took practical and project-based tests between October and December last year, these will be the theory portion of the assessment. The final test will be done between November 28th and December 1st, which will account for 40% and supervised by NEC. The Kenya Trade Network Agency has announced plans to plant 2,000 trees in the first half of 2022 in a bid to increase the forest cover in the country to over 10% tree cover from the current 7%. Speaking during a tree planting exercise at the Nairobi Primary School, Kenya Chief Executive Officer Amos Wangora explained that the initiative highlights the agency's commitment towards sustainability. At 7% tree cover, Kenya is one of the least forested countries in Africa, equating to 67 trees per person compared to a global average that's around 420 trees for each person in our country. Ethiopian Airlines is today resuming operation of the Boeing 737 MAX for the first time since a crash nearly 3 years ago, killed all 157 people on board and triggered the global grounding of the aircraft. Flight 302 from Addis Ababa to Nairobi plunged 6 minutes after takeoff into a field southeast of the Ethiopian capital in March 2019, 5 months after a similar crash in Indonesia left 189 people dead. The twin disasters and subsequent scrutiny of the 737 MAX 40 flight handling system, known as the Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System, amounted to the worst crises in Boeing's history. State-owned Ethiopian Airlines, the jewel of the economy of Africa's second most populous country, had long said it would be the last carrier to use the single-aisle jets again. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, traffic continues in most parts of the city this morning. We're still looking at it hot and heavy on Mombasa Road today. It doesn't look like that's letting up anytime soon. Also quite crazy on the Thika Superhighway coming into the city, but just past Survey now, moving closer and closer to things, and so that's all right. Kiambu Road still continues with a thing today. Limuru Road in and outbound, crazy traffic, and it's going further into the city. We're looking at the whole Gigiri area, Figiri Ridge, Peponi Road, Red Hill coming out in that direction. It's a mess coming into Westlands. Use the Red Hill Link Road. You get out of the city and then back in if that's what you're looking to do. All right, where else are we looking at it? Langata Road going towards Raila Odinga Way, Uhuru Highway, spots and spots as you get into the city. Let's keep an eye on things. We should be out of traffic in about half an hour or so, but for now still looks pretty sticky wherever it is that you are. Let's apply a dollop of patience everywhere, shall we? And then talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation. It is The Situation Room. Coming into the final hour of the show this morning, it's the first day of February 2022, counting down to March, when the president will drive on the newly finished Nairobi Expressway. Forget about anything that City Muga is about to say.
I will not repeat myself. I've already said it.
Good.
Come March, the expressway will not be completed. It will not be. It's a simple statement of fact. Yes.
End of March? Not beginning. End.
Eric, even the end of March, how many promises have we been made? You drive along this route and look at the expressway at every stage and tell me which one in your mind looks like it's near completion. Tell me which section. And look at the pace at which this... We were told in November that they were putting in the finishing touches. And I realized that I didn't understand that term.
Finishing touches?
Yes. The thing is, why don't they just tell the president the truth?
When do you estimate this highway will be complete?
No. You now ask me a technical question. You
When
know
do
full
you
well.
estimate?
And I'm not an engineer.
Now that you can estimate that it will not be completed in March, arguing with the engineers who've said so. So when do you want?
Eric, you know what you're doing here? You're asking me how to make a table just because I own one. No, sorry. I know it will not be completed in March because I'm on this road every single day. And I know, I've been watching that. I mean, I pass by the progress. I look at it, I see it. So, March? No. And that trick question of when I think it will be completed, Forget. I'm not going to give
You're not body.
Nope.
Okay,
There I'm not
give
going.
us the day's proverb.
Kupotea njia ndio kuijua.
Kupotea njia ndio kuijua.
Yes, you lose your way. That's one way of finding it. Or being more knowledgeable of it. Yes. Because you've passed through it. You lose your way, you now know, I lost my way.
Failure is the best teacher.
Yes, and you'll know your way back.
There's mwanaharakati Mukoya who has Kenyanized that proverb on social media. In the response, he says, in Kenya, ukipotea njia, shauri yako. Let's introduce our guest, the Honorable Jude Njomo, the MP for Kiambu constituency. He joins us now in the Situation Room. Good morning, Mheshimiwa.
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
We hope to have you at 7 to 8. What happened?
Expressway, the one you're talking about.
You have vindicated City Muga.
Yeah? You see, the Swahili say, jogo ya shamba, haiwiki mjini. So I brought my ushamba to town, and I was tamed in a serious way, because I got to Mombasa Road and I got into a traffic jam that lasted for over 45 minutes. That really messed up my time. I'm not used to Mombasa Road in that hour of the morning, so even my time planning was completely out of tune. But as he has said, we can see a beautiful road coming up. Maybe that's a price we have to pay for the development that we are going to get. I got an opportunity yesterday when I was in one of the high-rise buildings in Nairobi to get a view of what is happening up there. And I think what is coming up generally, and without looking at technical details, looks like a beautiful project. It may have delayed, and what I can say is we have waited for it for a long time, waiting for it for an extra month. We always know that projects start, and they are always given a provision of additional time, just in case they were interrupted by vagaries of weather or some delay in availability of material or the pandemic like we had, There are many reasons why projects are delayed. But this is not a white elephant project like others that we have seen. This is a project that is ongoing. This is a project that we are very, very hopeful that will be completed very, very soon. And it's a project that we hope will get rid of some of the serious traffic jams that we have experienced in this Nairobi city.
All those things, hope is the operative word.
Yeah.
Okay. Jude Njomo is the MP who pushed through Parliament, and he convinced his fellow legislators, and they agreed to put an interest rate cap. And it worked for a while before it stopped working for a while. Now, Jude Njomo, you have written to the Speaker of the National Assembly, and this is with regards to the treaties that we signed, the economic agreements that we signed with other countries, the trade pacts that we signed with other countries, so to speak. And there's what you're asking the Speaker of the National Assembly to do, that he okays the establishment of a select committee that then reviews all those that we've signed in the past. Am I correct?
Partly. First, I want to introduce myself as Jude Njomo. I'm the servant of the people of Kiambu, and I serve them as their member of parliament. And I proudly do so. I'm also the chairman of Parliamentary Caucus on Economy and Business. And this is a caucus that really focuses in a bipartisan manner on all matters that go through Parliament that touches on our economy. I know there's the departmental committees that are mandated to do that. There is a departmental committee on finance. There is a budget and appropriations committee that has the same mandate. But they have their, I don't know what to call them, timelines. They have responsibilities. There are duties that they must do at all the time. Say the budget and appropriation committee, which I'm also a member. Every bill that goes through Parliament must go through the budget committee, so that the committee determines whether it is a money bill or it's not a money bill. That is a lot of work, because there are so many proposals that go through the House, and each of them must be discussed by the budget committee. As they are doing this, there is the budget itself must be interrogated by the budget committee. And of course, every year there are 2 or 3 supplementary budgets. Each supplementary budget goes through its own departmental committee. Then the chairman of that departmental committee comes and presents it to the budget committee, who now decides on the final fate of that particular budget. So the committee has a lot of work. So they may, though willing to investigate on these matters of economy and business, they may not have the appropriate time to do so. So this caucus is a caucus of people who have volunteered themselves to look at matters that affect our economy and our businesses. There's also a clear understanding that our economy will only improve if we improve the way our people do business. If we make sure that our business people, our SMEs, our traders are doing a profitable business. Because it's only out of the profit that they make that they can be able to pay taxes. And when they pay taxes, the government gets its revenue. So that is the thinking behind the caucus. Now, one of the matters that we have dealt with as a caucus is the UK-Kenya Economic Partnership Agreement that came through Parliament a couple of months ago. And as caucus, we went through the agreement. And there are several issues we had with it. And we felt that it was not properly deliberated before being tabled in the House. And we came together as members, and we tried to persuade the departmental committee to withdraw the tabling of the agreement, so that we can thrash out those thorny issues that we had identified. They were not able to do that, but we came together as a caucus, and we were able to convince the speaker that there are things that have not been done properly. There was no proper public participation in that bill, and we succeeded, and we were able to reverse what had been done. We were able to start all over again from the beginning. We did public participation. We deliberated on that agreement for about 2 weeks until we came to a consensus before tabling it again on the floor of the House.
What initially had happened?
There was a key document that was not attached to the agreement. Because, in an economic partnership agreement, we are agreeing that UK are supposed to sell certain products to us. So they must attach a schedule showing all those products that are supposed to be brought here, or that are supposed to come to Kenya
and enjoy duty-free.
There is also a list of goods that should be allowed to go to UK duty-free. So those lists were missing. I know maybe they were tabled to the committee, but they were not tabled to the House. But we used that as a loophole to make sure that we sit down again and discuss this bill in details. We make sure that our business people, because we invited them, we invited
KEPSA?
We invited KEPSA, we invited
Association of Manufacturers.
Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we invited, what do you call?
The Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce, this one headed by Gatia. And then they came with their members. We also invited exporters of horticulture, fruit exporters. We invited all people who do import and export, and people who think that they might be affected by that economic partnership agreement. For example, sugar processors. If we opened business of importing sugar to Kenya from UK, that will kill our sugar industry. And that was one of the things that we noted. Though they were not allowing sugar, but they were allowing beet sugar. In Kenya we don't use beet sugar. Most of the European countries don't use cane sugar. They use beet sugar. So if we opened the floodgates for beet sugar to come into our country, then that would kill our cane.
We've introduced an alternative to our cane sugar.
Yes, to our cane sugar. And that would kill all our cane farming in the Nyanza and Western region, and even in the coast region. So we made sure that cane sugar was not part of the deal. So by the end of the day, we had come to an agreement that we have now, an economic partnership agreement that we can say was, it was not going to
But
affect.
Mheshimiwa, so how had this agreement first been signed without public participation? How had the government of Kenya gone ahead to sign a deal with a UK government on economic partnership without involving the key stakeholders? And this is the various sectors of our economy, like you've said, and the various traders, and most importantly, the people's representatives.
Article 2 of our Constitution, Article 2, subsection 6, says that every international agreement that is that passes through, that is ratified by Parliament, becomes part of our law. So that is why we have written to the Speaker that we want to do some amendments to that law, because we feel that the way the Act, the Treaty Making and Ratification Act, is made, keeps out Parliament in any negotiations of international treaties, because it defines a treaty, the method of doing a treaty, that the executive or the minister will select a team that will negotiate with the other country, which will also select a team, and then they go to a negotiating table, they agree on terms and everything. After they have agreed, then the ministers sign an agreement. When they have signed, that is when now they bring it over to our country. Before it comes to Parliament, the minister is supposed to present to the cabinet that same agreement, plus a memorandum explaining the importance of that agreement, how is it going to affect our economy, and how is it going to affect our counties. Now, it does not, this same act does not obligate the minister to table the same documents to Parliament, but to table the agreement to Parliament so that Parliament can discuss and approve or reject the agreement. The UK partnership was even tougher because it did not allow for any amendments to be made. So we felt it was not well negotiated.
So it was brought to Parliament for rubber stamping.
For rubber stamping, that is what I'm saying. And that is why we feel as Parliament that we are being misused. And that is why we are proposing these amendments. So that whenever the executive feels that they want to negotiate a partnership agreement or economic agreement with another country, they must involve Parliament. And Parliament will do a select committee that will work hand in hand with the executive to negotiate with that other country, so that from the word go, the interest of Mwananchi, which will be represented now by the elected leader, will be taken into consideration.
Mheshimiwa, without that intervention at that point, because it was basically coming to Parliament for quasi-ratification, right? Just move on with this. So without the intervention at that point to say, hold on a minute, what does this thing actually say? What would have happened, or what would have been some of the things then that would have been essentially made law, quote-unquote law, in the country considering this deal? What would have been some of the things that we would see? And then now with those interventions, what then would change with these amendments that are now being proposed?
Okay, what we are trying to eliminate is the notion that negotiations of economic treaties are like secret affairs.
Yes.
That they have to be done in secrecy until it is ready. Now that is when it's being presented. We want Wananchi, we want Parliament to understand what are these things that are being negotiated. As we speak right now, Kenya is negotiating a treaty with the US. What are they negotiating? I would like them to negotiate Mutumba. Because I know US Mutumba is flooded in Kenya. So what are they going to do? So that person who is negotiating, does he know that Mutumba is affecting me as a resident of Kenya? Does it know that Mutumba is affecting that cotton farmer who used to farm cotton, but now he cannot do because Mutumba has flooded the market? You know? So we want that to be eliminated. We want to understand from the word go, what is this that is pushing us to negotiate with United States? We first understand, okay, we want to negotiate with them because we want to access their market, we want to do ABCD, we want to understand it. Then after we have understood it, then we would like to know in details what are these items that are being negotiated. And that is why when we do the amendment to the treaty making and ratification law, it will include that. So that if Ministry of Trade wants to negotiate an economic partnership agreement with any country, then let wananchi be involved right from the word go. It may take a longer time than what they are used to, but I think it will have a better impact to our economy.
And essentially what we are saying is not just this one, but any other
going forward,
any other agreement
Yes.
on whatever grounds must be looked at before we go ahead and put ink to paper.
Yes.
Okay.
Because when we select a small team of 10 technocrats who will go and negotiate with UK, what surety do I have that they cannot be compromised and come with agreements that does not favor our country? And then when it comes on the table, we have no provision to make amendments.
Cannot amend it.
You know, we want to panel beat that agreement right from the word go, so that even if the basics are wrong, we correct them before we develop it to any other level. And I think we are not the first country to do that. We have looked at other jurisdictions that do. Okay, there are some countries who have the similar provisions like we have, but we have looked at jurisdictions that are allow fully participation of wananchi in their economic partnership agreement, and we want to match the best. You know, we want to match those jurisdictions where they involve their wananchi.
Tell me, Mheshimiwa, so this Treaty Making and Ratification Act, when was it enacted?
I think it was enacted in 2012. It's one of the acts.
It's one of those that were brought in by the Nyachai Commission.
Yes, that we are supposed to support or to give strength to the Constitution.
Right.
Because when they did the Constitution, they just said that international treaties that are ratified by Parliament becomes
part of Kenyan law.
Part of Kenyan law. So Parliament was supposed now to enact law to give force to that particular article of the Constitution.
So throughout that drafting process, when it was being drafted by the Nyachai Commission and it was brought to Parliament, it was discussed, are you telling me that this issue never cropped up, that Parliament is actually not being given any opportunity to participate in the negotiations, the trade negotiations, or that the whole principle of public participation is not being factored into this?
Public participation is a new thing it was a new thing then. Remember?
Yes.
With the
Constitution.
In the 10th Parliament, public participation was not mandatory. Two, and I'm commenting about things I don't know because I was not in Parliament in 2012.
No, I'm saying,
I'm just imagining.
At that point, you know, among the things that were very clear, especially with the Committee for the Implementation of the Constitution, that was the Nyachai Commission, when they were making these laws, they knew that they are breathing life into the Constitution. And they knew one of the principal tenets in lawmaking going forward shall be public participation. So every law shall factor in how the public participation shall take place. Now, we know that there's public participation now is it the second reading of any bill in Parliament when it goes into committee stage. But at this particular point, with this particular law, it does not provide for that because
no.
Let me correct you. Reading,
let me correct you.
You're not going to open anything.
When the bill comes, when the agreement comes to Parliament, and before it is passed, it goes through a public participation. But what I'm saying, this is not going to be an effective public participation
because it cannot.
Because already the ministers of the respective countries have signed. So why is public participating at this juncture? So that is why we want to change the whole.
That's my point, actually.
That's why we want to change the whole setup, so that we involve public right from the word go.
You know, my question,
right from the negotiations.
Where I'm heading with this question is for you to speculate, having interrogated and interacted with various people who were in Parliament then, who are outside Parliament now. Why did this pass the way it did?
I don't want to answer that question because I was not there and I don't know the thinking of the members of parliament who were there in 2012. But I think the most proactive thing to do is to change the mess that has been done, is to amend the law so that it suits today's way of thinking, so that the public participation that is going to be carried out is an active public participation that will effect changes in the agreement that is going to be done. Yes, I agree that law was not very well done, but we are going to amend it so that it is it becomes a modern law.
You don't want to say it,
Even
Mheshimiwa,
as
let
you
me
do
say
that,
it. We don't want to say that was foul play.
But even as we do that, and even as he says
Deliberate.
that, I'm a bit worried if we have to say there must be a law that insists this to be done, whereby the expectation then of Parliament is that it would be so robust that anything that comes like that would be argued from top to bottom, regardless of whether there's a law or not.
You see, Parliament is a house of law. And in whatever we do, we follow the law. So if we feel
So
that...
if it comes already signed, there's nothing we can do about it.
Well, we can reject it. We can reject it.
Yeah.
But what are the... what is the price to pay
what do we lose?
for us rejecting? Because this economic partnership agreement we are doing in the UK was necessitated by the fact that UK exited from
Brexit,
from
European
Union. Before then, we were using an economic partnership agreement that was signed between East African Community and the European Union, which allowed some of our products to enter their market tax-free.
Yes.
So if we would have refused to sign and rejected that treaty,
we lose on that
then
export.
all those commodities that would have been allowed into UK duty-free, we would have to start paying duty, including our avocado, including our flowers, including our tea, which is will be detrimental to our farmers.
Yep.
But that should not close our eyes to the imports that we also get from UK. There are some products we can allow that can really mess with our economy. So there is actually need to sign such a treaty.
So
let's take a break, and then you can ask the question after this break. It's 29 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room on SpiceFM, and also live streaming on SpiceFM KE, Facebook and YouTube, and www.spicefm.co.ke. Our guest for this hour is the Honourable Jude Njomo, the MP for Kiambu constituency and the chairman of the Parliamentary Caucus on
Economy and Business.
We are talking about a push by Mheshimiwa Njomo to have a select committee set up in Parliament to look at the treaties that we've signed.
It's a push by the caucus.
It's a push by the caucus.
It's only that I'm heading the caucus, but this will be the first bill to be enacted by a caucus.
Very good.
It has not been done before in the country.
Let's take a break. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
What does the 14th of February mean to you? Is it Valentine's Day, Singles Awareness Day, or just another day on the calendar?
I don't need the 14th.
Either way, we're celebrating love in all its variants. This February, if you're here for love or just laughs, you're welcome to join us at the Tamarind Tree Hotel, Nairobi on the 12th of February for a good time and zero pressure to be anything but yourself. Book a room with your squad, your partner, or by yourself and enjoy dinner and a fun night with performances from Atemi, MC Jesse, and more. Hosted by Spice FM's Barbara Mbaka. If you're like us, you'll take it to the next level and take advantage of the late checkout and breakfast the next day. Join us at Love and Laughter by reserving your spot now for 16,500 shillings for a single and 20,000 shillings for two, payable to paybill number 365582. Account name Valentine's. For more information, call 0748 313 414.
All right, so still partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, going to highs of 25 and lows of 15. Partly sunny in Nakuru at 17, highs of 26 and lows of 15. It's partly sunny at 16 in Nyeri, highs of 26 and lows of 15 as well. We'll see 14 as the low in Eldoret, where it's mostly cloudy at 15. going to highs of 25. Sunny conditions in Mombasa at 26, highs of 32. We'll also see highs of 31 in Malindi, where it's partly sunny at 26. At 20, Kisumu is cloudy, highs of 28 and lows of 19. And Kakamega cloudy as well. We'll go to highs of 28 and lows of 16. Kampala is cloudy at 21, highs of 27. Dar es Salaam, sunny conditions at 27, highs of 31 and lows of 25. We're looking at sunny conditions at 16 in Joburg, highs of 25 and lows of 15. While in Lagos, it continues to be hazy at 22. That'll be today's low, going to highs of 33. 33 will also be the high in Kinshasa, where it's cloudy at 23. Let's look out into Beijing going into early evening Tuesday. 1 degree right now. We'll see highs of 3 and lows of -8. It's raining in Paris, coupled with the snow can't be funny at 4 degrees, highs of 10 and lows of 3. 8 degrees and mostly cloudy in London, highs of 13 and lows of 8. And New York coming into Tuesday, it's -2. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of just 1.
Forgiveness is always conditional. Even before God, there's nothing like unconditional forgiveness.
Government doesn't pay you pension until you retire. In fact, they have no money for you. The day you retire, they look for it.
This country is punishing many young people. These young people are more susceptible to be deceived, to be taken advantage of, and they're more susceptible to be bought off.
Let us also talk about where we want our country to go. You know, we are a population of very young people.
We're in a state of capture. The judiciary is under duress. Parliament is in the pocket of the executive. You don't sit and wait for the regime to topple itself. It will never do so.
By the way, let me tell you, these guys are so persuasive. I'm telling you, they can persuade you to sell your grandmother. I'm telling you, they can sell sand in the desert.
City, has anybody on this program said to you as a guest, saying, "Oh, shut up, we don't want to be told what to do"? Has anybody that kind of... Has anybody been
I will not listen.
bit of advice? Because you're working on the premise that we should all pay heed to these proverbs. It's a very suspect notion.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Looking a little bit better Mombasa Road this morning. I think that previous situation has more or less cleared up. We're looking then at Outer Ring, which continues to be a bit of a mess as you head towards the junction with Juja Road. The junction with Savannah Road this morning. And Manyanja Road also continues with a little bit of traffic here and there, but nothing too crazy. Lunga Lunga today has been quite busy, and Jogo Road continues with the action that's happening there. Uhuru Highway getting out into the city and then towards Westland, that is a lot better. Langata Road, not too much of an issue. Raila Odinga Road continues at that junction that meets with Ngong Road, and that's the roundabout coming in from the city mortuary. All right, it still continues on Kiambu Road this morning. Limu Road still continues to be messy, and a little bit of action on the Thika Superhighway. Apart from that, we should be out of traffic hour in a few minutes. All right, talk to us through the morning on SpiceFM KE. That's on Twitter. Text 40127.
Welcome to Spice FM, the best exclusive radio station bringing you the best mix of the best music ever. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Conversation continues. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM and online with Eric Latiff, Ndu Okoh, CT Muga, and our guest is Jude Njomo, the MP for Kiambu constituency.
Mheshimiwa, would I be right in assuming that there are other caucuses within Parliament other than the one that you chair?
Yes, there are other caucuses. There are women caucus. This is Kewapa that looks at matters feminine. There is an African caucus on against corruption, APNAC. There are religious caucuses also within Parliament. There is an Islamic
Parliament has religious caucuses.
Oh yes, not only religious caucus. There is church. I belong to the Catholic Church. We have our prayers every Wednesday morning. There's a prayer breakfast group that also conducts their meetings every Wednesday morning, and they do their prayers. Members of Parliament are very prayerful.
That I do not doubt. It's what they pray for that I would like to
I don't know why many people think that they cannot equate religion with members of parliament. Maybe because sometimes we have to make tough decisions.
No, I actually don't think so. I actually think that members of parliament need to be prayerful. There's a great need for them to be close to God or to seek God.
And it's not only in the country, because as our Catholic Church in Parliament, we have joined the international community of members of Parliament who also have their own churches in each Parliament. And every August we meet in Rome and we hold our prayers, we hold our meetings, and we map the way forward of how we are going to do legislation that are godly, legislations that are guided by biblical teachings, and legislations that do not go against the teachings of the church.
You know, when you speak, I actually believe, personally, I've listened to you, because for someone to have raised the issues that you and your caucus raised, it is something that was looking after the interest of the Mwananchi.
You're right.
And you're looking and saying, no, surely. Because all these items, whatever the case is, surely. But then something that I read this morning puzzled me and it confused me. Because there's a political parties amendment bill 2021 which was passed. Now, the key thing that was highlighted in the article I was reading was that the Auditor General has been prohibited now from actually auditing money that is given to by the exchequer to political parties. And I was thinking, I thought prior to this, it was mandatory every year for the Auditor General to actually audit these very same monies that were given to political parties. That's why I asked about the caucuses, because I was thinking, surely even within Parliament itself, ought there not be, in my mind, should there not have been a caucus that says, no, folks, this auditing is absolutely necessary because it's public money being given to political parties. It is fair that the public knows and understands how that money was used. But when such a bill is passed, it's given the political parties the equivalent of a blank check. So nobody's going to ask. The money can be used in the way that people see fit and probably not in tandem with what it's intended to. So this puzzled me a bit.
I am not aware about obstruction of Auditor General from auditing the political parties' funds. I am not aware about that particular part. What I know concerning funds to the political parties, in the past, the parties had to attain a certain criteria for them to be qualified to access the political parties' money. But now, so long as you have an elected member, whether he's a member of the county assembly, or whether he's a member, or he's a governor, or he's a member of parliament or senator, your party qualifies to benefit from the political parties' fund. But the Auditor General's responsibility is to audit the usage of public fund. So if the public fund is being used in political parties, it should be audited.
You know, this article, and this is the document I'm quoting, what is now done is that the political parties take their books of accounts to the Auditor General, and that's what the Auditor General looks at.
You see, that is why we never use newspapers and cuttings, or, because the writer may not have appreciated what is actually, he's now giving us his opinion, all her opinion.
Interpretation.
And that is why even in Parliament, we are never allowed to quote from newspapers. If you want to quote from reports, quote from the Hansard, quote from books of law, but you can never quote from a newspaper cutting.
Not your porojo.
Because we do not know who wrote that. We do not know where he got that information from. Let us get information firsthand from those papers because they are there in Parliament. But I can't remember us passing any law. In any case, you can never pass a law that is illegal. It is illegal to deny the Auditor General access to public funds which he's supposed to audit.
Yeah.
It doesn't
make sense.
It's like saying...
That's why I said I was puzzled. I mean, I was really genuinely puzzled. Now, we talked about it here in the morning, and I kept in mind that when you come, since you're a member of parliament, I was going to ask, because now that one, I can authenticate the source. Yes.
The source of that information.
You can be.
No, you are the source. You now are the source, because you're a member of parliament.
I have in the past been a member of Public Accounts Committee,
yes,
which works hand in hand with the Auditor General in looking at the way public funds have been spent. I have never come across a situation where the Auditor General has no access to public fund, including funds that do not even come to the like security. Yeah. Security does not come to public accounts, but the Auditor General has access to those funds and he audits them.
Even defense.
Yes, it's only that he does not bring report to us. Yeah.
Do you feel, Mheshimiwa, I mean, from where you're coming from now, I mean, as I hear this, and I think this is great, because in principle, what we've been talking about here, looking at, I've always felt that here in Kenya, especially on the continent, when it comes to negotiating some of these things, that we often get the short end of the stick, not necessarily because of the patronizing attitude which exists from other countries, but because of our almost inability or no desire to be part of or to even sit at the negotiating table. So for me, in principle, what you're saying here today makes sense. Do you think that it can graduate? So that, without a doubt, anybody who is coming to sit at the table will understand that these are not folks that you're just going to walk over, but they're going to be extremely involved in this process so that both can be benefactors of the Are we getting to the point whereby now we can see this kind of principle of negotiation graduating to the point whereby we're saying, these folks are not a walk in the park?
I like the way you have put it, because that is the thinking behind this amendment to this law. That when we are negotiating these laws, we are not negotiating them from an inferiority point of view. We are not negotiating the laws from an underdog point of view. Whether we are negotiating with larger economies or first world nations, we should negotiate as equals. We have been taken advantage of in the past. We have, and we know even in other countries where, like especially like in mining industry, where deals have been negotiated, where we are just losing money, and those countries are making abnormal profits, while the owners of the minerals are getting peanuts, and that is why we want to involve as many people as we can in these negotiations, so that our country can benefit most from the results of the agreements that will emanate from that. In fact, after the economic partnership agreement, we will look at what other treaties do we make in the country, and how can we make them better, so that we reap the benefits.
There's an issue that you raised there, where you raised a concern that in the current scenario, the cabinet minister who's in charge of the negotiations of trade pacts with other countries will select a small team of people to go and negotiate. And he said, how do we know that those people cannot be compromised? And he said, now, if we include the people's representatives into such a committee, then you are taking care of people's interests. Now you're talking about Kenyan politicians, Kenyan parliamentarians. How do we know they're not going to even introduce compromising of this team that is of technocrats who've been there? How can we trust that by including members of parliament into the negotiating committee, we are then taking care of the interest of the public?
You see, elected members of parliament are representatives of the people.
Yes.
The executive team that do the negotiations are not elected. They are technocrats. Sometimes they fall short of the visions of the people.
And they're out of touch with reality.
They may be out of touch with reality. And sometimes they make decisions that we wonder, who made this decision and what did he have in mind when he made such a decision. So when we bring in people's representative, we are hoping that we have put more checks and balances. I don't know why people think of members of parliament like people who can easily be compromised. Look at a situation where we are negotiating about coffee, which is grown in my constituency. I would like the best for my coffee farmers.
Yes.
Yeah. So if I go to negotiate for them, and that is why we don't want a departmental committee to be working on this. We have talked about a select committee, so that if we are going to do a deal talking about fishing, export and import of fish, we are going to include members of parliament who come from those areas that are going to be affected by that particular business.
So it will be a select committee for a specific deal, and then
yes.
its time elapses,
yes.
we go.
Yes.
Next time there's a deal and it talks about commodities that will include something else, like Miraa farming, of course.
Then we include those people who are affected.
Okay.
Who will be affected by the
Which point, you know why we are laughing so much? You're giving the impression that members of parliament aren't aware of what the public think of them. We don't think highly of members of our parliament.
But you are the same people who elect these members of parliament.
That is actually the point.
And then you go again and you re-elect them.
The people we elect are not the people who we eventually see a year or two after they've been in parliament. They morph into other creatures that we half the time we can't recognize. And that's why the attrition rate is as high as it is. Yes, there are people who are and if you look at the individuals who are re-elected, it is not difficult to understand or see why they've been re-elected. There are people who, what they say they will do, they have done. And if they haven't, they have spoken and said why they haven't. And they have a plan. The vast majority just talk. That's the impression the Mwananchi has. And then on things that the Mwananchi considers to be crucial, decisions are made and you wonder, how on earth don't they understand? Now, perhaps parliamentarians don't air the environment in which they work, the difficulties that they encounter in making the decisions that they make, but the impression the general public has of parliamentarians, it is terrible. It's not good. Not good at all.
Parliament has an image crisis,
Yes.
and the next Parliament ought to basically look back into this one and improve on that. However, I think in principle, I agree with the idea of having people's representatives join this committee or at some stage, whether it's joining the committee and going to negotiate, or whether it's once the technical team has negotiated, come and sit with the people's representatives and have this matter opened up to the public, because there's a sense of accountability here. The people's representatives are supposed to be holding the executive to account, and they're also in turn being held accountable by the people who elected them. I like the idea of having them join this. Now, with all these conversations that
and even subjecting the agreement to public participation before the ministers sign.
Before it has been, ink has been put to paper. Now, when you're having these conversations as a caucus with, of course, the various duty bearers, what kind of feedback are you getting? I'm sure you've had this conversation with various personalities, technocrats who are working in government who participated in this before. What kind of feedback are you getting from them? Are they telling you, when we go to those countries and they hear that there's a member of parliament, will get pushback? Are you getting positive or negative?
When I talk with the people locally, everybody thinks that's the right direction to go in terms of improving the quality of agreements, in terms of negotiating better deals for our country, in also getting better deals for our people. People think that is the right direction to take. In any case, we are not reinventing the wheel. It has been done in other jurisdictions, and sometimes we negotiate with countries that have put those systems into play. So their people know what we are negotiating, while we do not know what they are negotiating. For example, we are getting information of the deal that is being negotiated between Kenya and America from America, because America is doing their side of the deal transparently. From our side,
We have
we
no
have to
clue.
wait.
Oh, so you would assume.
Yeah?
You would
Yes.
assume that it was.
Well,
weak.
at least there's some public participation
So,
taking place.
we will wait until the chakula is evad. That is when we will know what is this we are cooking.
You don't know what went into the
Yes,
cooking process.
we want to be involved from the time of peeling the potatoes. We want cutting the onions. We want to be there.
And for it to be transparent.
Yes,
so that
to be done
anybody
in
can
a very
access
transparent way. So that if we are farmers and they are negotiating matters involving farmers, we will look for organizations that deal with farming so that they can give their input. If they are negotiating about fishing and fish export and import, we include all those who are involved in that particular field, so that our treaty will be enriched and is going to be beneficial to us.
I'm asking what kind of feedback you're getting from government offices, because these are the same people who went and signed a deal with the UK government, and in it they included a clause that says this cannot be amended.
Of course, they will not welcome us on the table. That is why we have not consulted them, and we are not obliged to consult them. But when we are doing the law, we will involve them, because the first thing you do when for example, now I'm getting drafters from Parliament who we shall sit down, and that is why I had to write to the Speaker so that he can give me drafters. Then the drafters will sit down with my caucus so that they can internalize what we want to do. These are the people who are going to tell us, okay, we have to amend. For example, in our mind, we want to amend Treaty Making and Ratification Act. We want to amend the standing orders. But they will also advise us, because they are professionals, that if you amend this, then you have to amend these others.
Yeah.
So that is work in progress. Now we will, once we have drafted the bill, now we will send it after maybe the first reading. We will send it to the mother or to the relevant ministry. That is now when they can come back with their feedback and their disagreement or agreements also, or on their own proposed amendments. But they are not cast on stone. They will come. They will be considered by the Committee of Parliament, and they'll see whether they can include them in the bill.
Do you have a final question? I know.
Look, I like the robustness of this with which you're speaking about this. My desire, I mean, even as we talk about the seriousness with which Kenyans look at Parliament, not just presently, but how it has been historically, I think this is one thing that at least can catapult a new image of Parliament in the minds of Kenyans, to say that we're really concerned about this, not for any other motive, but to make sure that the entire country is entering into something that's going to be beneficial across board. Because again, it has been that, parliamentarians are there for their own selfish interests. And, when something doesn't suit you, that's when you see something being argued about. But I think that this is a beautiful opportunity to have some of those things, changed around internally and externally, to say that, all right, so here is Parliament that's, number one, worth its salt in terms of numbers, but then at the same time, in terms of what can be negotiated in terms of the legislature. Who can get the guarantee, or how will the guarantee then be made to people that, look, here is one, and that there is more in line, there are more in succession, that we say, from this, we're going to the next?
That's a statement, not a question.
What's the guarantee?
What's the guarantee?
A guarantee about having this law passed.
And more to come.
You see, you have seen the sense in this law, as we have explained, and the need for this law. I don't see any member of Parliament waking up to say this should not be done. Maybe the only argument they can say is going to make treaty making a lengthy process. Because once you propose, then you have to inform Parliament, for Parliament to do a select committee. It is a very necessary delay. Yeah, we can delay for 2 or 3 months just to ensure that the product that we are going to get at the end of the day is something that is going to benefit not only our country, but also its people. So I am so sure, even from the members that I have discussed with about this, that this is going to be a success. The only trouble we have is the timelines. Are we going to be able to finish this bill
within the life
of this parliament. That is the biggest challenge.
We can always wish you all
but
the
I'm
best.
very, very, very positive that our electorate will bring us to parliament back next term, so that we can finish some of these unfinished
So this
jobs.
will be among the things that you go and say, I started something, vote me back.
I have started many bills that have not gone through. I'm doing an amendment to traffic law, so that we can recognize now things like expressway, which are not in our legal books, or the Thika Road, super highway. You find that there are some heavy lorries driving on the right hand side and you cannot overtake. We have to put those things in law. I'm doing amendment of NITA bill, which is going to allow us to
come back and tell us about all these bills. Asante sana for joining us today. Jude Njomo is the MP for Kiambu constituency. We've been talking about the push to have the Treaty Making and Ratification Acts amended, and also formation of select committees to be looking at whatever treaty we get into. City, as we say goodbye, the day's proverb?
Kupotea njia ndio kuijua.
Kupotea njia ndio kuijua. Jude Njomo now knows a better way of getting to Standard Group after kupotea this morning in traffic. Have a lovely day, folks. See you again tomorrow. It's 10 a.m.
Spice up your life.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for